I thought we had the perfect life. A beautiful home, a gorgeous wife, and a future filled with dreams. But that illusion shattered the moment I walked in on her with another man. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife, and rage consumed me. The confrontation was brutal. Her pleas for forgiveness fell on deaf ears, and in that moment, I vowed to make them both pay. What followed was a descent into a darkness I never knew existed within me, turning my life into a relentless quest for vengeance. "Don't forget we have to be at Carol and Benny's by 6 tonight," Kelly reminded me. "Sorry, let me start again. I'm James Barrymore, her husband. Kelly is the amazing, loving wife I married 6 years ago. Got it? Good." I felt a bit annoyed and said, "No problem, sweetheart. I just have to drop off some papers to Leonard before he leaves for his trip. I won't be more than an hour." Kelly walked into the bedroom, leaning against the open door. I noticed her blonde hair falling over her shoulders, but really, she has beautiful auburn hair. I can't understand why she keeps dyeing it blonde. I like both colors. "That's what you always say, Jim," she teased. I got ready to leave and reminded her, "I want your word that you won't talk about work like you always do." She rolled her eyes at me when I shortened my name, and I could tell I had annoyed her. I thought to myself, what a mood killer. I didn't understand why we spent so much time with her group of friends. I don't have anything in common with them, and I feel awkward around their wives. Kelly raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by that?" she asked. I sighed and went on. "You know, I felt like prey at that barbecue last time. Ham made it clear she would have pulled me away if you hadn't been there, and I didn't like how much Leonard talked to you either." I saw her eyes flash with anger. "I don't like you calling our friends reprobates, Jim," she snapped. I could see this conversation was going to go nowhere good. "You sound jealous of Chad," she added. "If I had taken Pam's invitation, I wouldn't feel out of place," she said. I felt a shiver go through me. There's a difference between friendly flirting and someone being too forward. "Are you really not worried that one of your friends is hitting on me?" I asked. Kelly backtracked quickly. "No, baby, that's not it. Pam is just friendly," she said. "Now hurry up. You know how great I am and no one else can compare." She moved closer and playfully said, "If you play your cards right, you might have a nice night ahead." She lightly touched my cheek, then turned and walked back into the bedroom, and I found myself watching her go. I sighed and grabbed my coat and bag as I headed out the door. Kelly had chosen to stay home instead of working, focusing on charity work. I respected her choice, but sometimes felt it made her unaware of how hard it was to earn money. As much as I should be excited for the evening, I felt an uneasy feeling hanging over me. I couldn't quite place it. But things in our home hadn't felt right lately. The gathering was at Caroline and Benjamin's house. When we stepped into the backyard, I saw 4 couples gathered in the gazebo. Maybe it was my imagination, but they looked like they were up to something. Thankfully, there were other couples and singles around, so I wouldn't have to spend the whole night with what I called the Kelly gang. It didn't surprise me when Kelly led us straight to the gazebo. "Hello, Kelly! Jimmy!" they all shouted. Oh, they keep shortening my name, and we haven't even started the evening. It annoys me when people don't respect my name. Imagine going to someone's house and saying you want coffee, but they keep giving you tea. It wouldn't feel right at all, especially since I can't stand tea. But let's not dwell on that. I'm glad to see you made it here on time. That was Carol's little hint to me. I have to admit I've been late to events before, especially when it involves Kelly's group. I felt annoyed, but I kept my cool. Carol, Ben, Pam, Chad, Liz, Norm, Sue, Mel. You all seem so comfortable together. I can't help but feel irritated. They don't mind being called short names, but I try hard to be nice. Sometimes it just bothers me. Their full names are Caroline and Benjamin, Pamela and Chadwick, Elizabeth and Norman, and finally there's Suzanne and Malcolm. Fine, I can let Chad slide. Who would want to call a kid Chadwick? Chad is bad enough. As for Beth, Liz, or Ebby, she answers to just about anything. She has so many nicknames, it's unreal. But I get it. She doesn't seem to think that much. It feels like she has one thought bouncing around, with no real way to connect. Yep, she's kind of clueless. If I called her something silly like doggy poop, she'd just laugh. Pam stood up to greet Kelly. "Wow, you look amazing." Kelly smiled at the compliment. Sometimes I wonder why I married her, as she can be a bit airheaded too. I felt the weight of my worries grow. Norm moved to let Kelly in. "Don't mind James, he's just a bit stressed from work," Kelly said, waving me over. "Come on, there's still space. Beth and Sue won't mind if you sit next to them." Sue shuffled over and patted the seat by her. Beth winked at me and said, "I won't bite too hard," then giggled. Unbelievably, she actually thought of two things at once. I wondered who was teaching her. Now, let me tell you about these so-called friends of Kelly. I use the word friends lightly. Carol seems to be watching everyone, waiting for someone to trip up. She gives off a vibe like a vulture. As for Beth, the clueless one, well, Carol's husband Ben is just like her. He has one simple saying, "Use it or lose it." Not the deepest thought, but I get the feeling that's why he's all brawn and no brains. Pam and Chad? Well, they are like two peas in a pod. I'm sure they were close before they even left the starting line. It's a match made in... It's hard to say. If they're not headed straight for trouble, I'd be surprised. While Beth may be airheaded, she's honest about it. Norman, her husband, thinks he's a genius. But honestly, after hanging out with Beth for ages, how smart can you really be? His brain power is just slightly above mine, and I certainly don't think I'm a genius. I remember taking a silly test they thought was fun. My score was 125, not exactly a genius level. Norman got upset because he didn't do as well. Whatever. Sue, Mao's wife, is a non-stop talker. If there were speed limits for chatting, she'd be breaking records. Honestly, I often think about recording her speeches just to hear if she makes sense. After listening to her, I feel worn out. Lastly, there's Mel. Let's say I try to be funny or cheerful. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It all depends on the crowd and how much I've had to drink. I can be sweet, especially if there are nice women around. But I've had my flops too, usually after a few drinks. Take last year's anniversary. I actually remembered. Can you believe it? But if you ask Kelly, she'd say I messed it up. I stopped by a bar to grab a dozen roses and some chocolates. I thought I was being so romantic. But things went sideways. I lived just a short walk from the tavern, but that didn't keep me from making a mess. They say if you drink and drive, you're a fool. I agree. If I hadn't driven home, I wouldn't have sat on the roses. I woke up the next morning with a rose stem stuck to me and a headache like a balloon. But that wasn't the worst part. I found my car still parked in the yard, and the other rose stems were on the ground by the driver's door. I have no clue where the chocolates went. Now I'm really in trouble. Not the fun kind either. A bunch of long stems without any flowers and no chocolates isn't exactly a great gift, is it? The last thing I remember is my friends giving me high fives and wishing me a good day. I remember it well, not a week later when I'm wondering what went wrong. But I'm still in trouble, right? Isn't it the thought that matters? Well, not to Kelly. She didn't want to see my side. It's hard to win when things go south. Now, don't think that I'm a heavy drinker. I only get drunk maybe once or twice a year. Most of the time, I just have one or two light beers. I know I have some timing issues. I can even be serious and smart when I need to be. But that's best when I'm completely sober. I can change when the situation calls for it, but it takes me some time to get into the right mood. You get where I'm coming from, right? But I'm not like a light switch that just flips on and off. Oh man, Norm is harder to read than a book upside down. He can change his mind so quickly. Mel is different. He's like a chameleon. He acts like whoever he is hanging out with. He blends in so well that he can become annoying. If others are mean, he joins in. But if they're nice, he can switch to being nice too, so fast it's almost dizzying. That's why I try to stay away from them. Anyway, back to the story. I was about to step into a tricky situation. I raised my hand to tell the group I was going to get drinks first. Chad held up his beer can and said, "While you're there, I could use another one." Jimmy, my old friend, spoke up too. I could tell from his tone that he was teasing. I reminded myself to stay cool. So I asked the group, "Anyone else need a drink?" I told myself I'd be back in 5 minutes as I headed to the bar. That was all the time it took for me to want to strangle every last one of those guys. When I got back with the drinks, I spotted Liz and Sue. They were giggling like kids on a first date and patting the seat next to them, inviting me to sit. I should mention these women aren't teenagers. They're in their late 20s or early 30s. So, can you see why I think their giggles are too much? I put the drinks down on the seat and picked up my own. I just saw Franklin, I said. I'll go see how the ski boat is doing. Good old Franklin. He's a lifesaver. He really looks out for people. He should be done with his boat by now. I turned to walk away, but I noticed Kelly looked frustrated. I chuckled to myself. You brought me here, but don't expect me to join your friends. I had a little victory. After all, I'd been doing well avoiding Kelly's friends all evening while still keeping an eye on her. Kelly was always within sight, but she would disappear every few minutes, which bothered me. After chatting with a few guests, Caroline found me next to the makeshift bar. There you are, stranger, she said as she filled her glass with wine. Hi, Carol. The party looks nice, I replied, trying to keep it simple. I felt a little irritated, but I hid it. I couldn't help but notice how Caroline's dress showed off her figure. Are you having a good time, Jim? She asked, looking me right in the eye. Is something bothering you? I thought about how they always messed with my name. I had talked to them about it many times, but it didn't seem to matter to them at all. I tried to ignore it. No, not really, Carol. Why do you ask? I realized too late that I had invited a response I didn't want to hear. Carol bit her lip for a moment. Oh, it's nothing. E.B. thought she might have said something to upset you when you got here. Apparently, she didn't mean any harm by her silly comment. That was a new one. If Beth has a new image, I wonder if the tax people know they are dealing with someone who has multiple personalities. Now I'm thinking, does Norm end up in bed with different women each night? Maybe he's smarter than I thought. Thinking about how many women he's with made me tired. It must be hard to juggle that. I looked at Carol's face and saw she seemed unsure. I know it's hard to tell what people are feeling sometimes. No, Carol, I'm okay. Beth can stop worrying. Honestly, I just feel awkward in tight spots. Franklin said he would take Kelly and me out water skiing when his boat was ready. I wanted to check if he had finished fixing the motor. Carol's mood suddenly brightened. Oh, great. When will I learn to keep my mouth shut? Oh, you have to see this, she said with excitement. I sighed as Carol took my hand and pulled me into the house. Benny and I went skiing with Frank and Ivy last summer. I have pictures of us in the boat. Want to see them? I cursed myself. Nice going, James. Your brain just took a dive. Sure, I'd love to see the boat, I replied. Carol opened a photo album and moved in closer, rubbing her shoulder against my arm as she flipped through the pages. I tried to lean away without making it obvious, but it wasn't working. Every so often, I glanced out the sliding glass door, hoping to catch Kelly's eye. Kelly and the others were busy chatting, not noticing us. Carol kept playing with her top, distracting me as she showed me pictures. Look, Jimmy, we had such a fun time skiing and sunbathing. We should all go together when Frank has his boat ready. I finally stepped back. Carol had turned away from the door as she put the album down, revealing more than I was comfortable looking at. Wow, she's not wearing a bra right now. I remembered a few times I got on to Kelly for showing too much skin in public. Her response was usually, oh, I didn't know. Yeah, right, if I were in shorts, I would know. See anything you like, Jimmy? Want to look closer? What was I supposed to say? I felt like I was the target in a game. I should probably apologize to every woman I ever stared at like that. Sure, there are people who might like it, but it feels overwhelming if you don't want to go down that path. I caught myself looking at Carol. As nice as it was to look at, I felt sweat on my forehead. I glanced back out the door. Kelly and the others were still not looking our way. Ugh! Where are the cops when you need them? One wrong move by a woman, and they're ready to pounce. I had a strong feeling this was a trap. Carol seemed too good at this. She wasn't obvious, just made little moves to grab my attention. The perfume she wore was familiar. It was the same one Kelly used, and I wondered if Carol had borrowed it to try and impress me. If it wasn't for what she said next, I might have ignored all this and just enjoyed the moment. Do you do this with all your guests, Caroline? Carol's face paled, and she looked surprised. My tone wasn't asking. It was a statement. It made her fidget with her clothing. What does that mean? I felt my patience run thin. Don't play dumb with me, Caroline. You're not fooling me. Every time Kelly and I come to your get-togethers, I end up dealing with advances from one of you women. First it was Pam, then Sue, now you. It seems you think I'm a man who will cheat on his wife. Let me be clear, Caroline. I have no plans to break my marriage vows. Carol looked like she was shrinking. I won't cheat on my wife for anyone, you or your friends. If you really cared about your husbands, you wouldn't be trying to get me to play house with you. My face showed the disgust I felt as I walked to the sliding door. I called out for my wife, Kelly. "We're leaving now." Kelly turned around, surprised. "What? You're joking. What's wrong? It's still early. Why rush out?" Carol quickly left the house. As she got to Kelly, I could tell she was asking what happened, but Carol just shook her head and walked on. Kelly entered the room, looking expectant. "We're leaving, and I don't want you upset about it," I said firmly. Kelly looked worried and glanced back at the door before turning to me. "What's gotten into you, James? What did you say to her?" Carol looked like she might cry. "I doubt that," I replied flatly. "I've had enough of these women. I want nothing to do with their games. Let's go." Kelly snapped back. "James Barrymore, take that back. They're good people and our friends. If you upset Carol, you should apologize to her." I looked at her, confused. How could she think that? Then I sneered, feeling the frustration boil inside me. Friends shouldn't flirt with their friend's husband. Good people don't act like what your so-called friends are doing. I'm leaving in 5 minutes. If you're not in the car by then, you can walk home by yourself. It's not too far, just about a mile. But with those high heels, it might feel like 10 miles. Her feet must hurt too much to even think about taking them off. Kelly has never seen me this angry. Don't get me wrong. I can get a lot angrier than I was at that moment. She didn't know that, though, and tried to calm me down. "Please, James. There must be a mistake. I'm sure we can fix this." I just stared at her and could hear her voice getting quieter as I walked out the front door. "James, wait a minute. I need to get my purse and shawl. Don't go anywhere." Kelly must have gone outside to her friends again. What happened to just having a nice, quiet evening with good company? I sat in the car and checked my watch. 2 minutes, 27 seconds, and counting. It was so cold in the car on the way home that it felt like there could be icicles hanging from the mirror. Neither of us spoke. I was gripping the steering wheel, and Kelly was staring out the window, lost in her own thoughts. As soon as we got home, Kelly exploded. "Damn you, James, you embarrassed me tonight. I don't see why you're making such a big deal about this." I started walking toward the bedroom, but stopped halfway up the stairs. "For your information, my dear wife, I do not take cheating lightly. I care about my marriage vows. Carol and her friends have really tried to make me forget those vows. I'm getting really tired of this," I said, throwing my arms up in frustration. "I give up. I'm going to bed before I say something I'll regret. Are you coming?" "Shut up. I know what you're thinking. You're always so hopeful, right? It's just a man thing. Just because the party went downhill doesn't mean the rest of the night has to go that way too." But Kelly seemed angry and was in a really bad mood now. "If you go to bed acting like this, then you can forget about any fun tonight," she shot back. "You need to be more nice, Jimmy boy." Okay, maybe I was being a bit too optimistic. It reminded me of a dog that keeps chasing after a female dog that doesn't want him. The dog keeps trying even though he's getting pushed away. If I didn't feel a bit angry at Kelly's friends for ruining my night, I'd probably feel just as foolish. You have to wonder about women sometimes. Why do they give all the charm and none of the drive to one and the opposite to the other? It doesn't make sense. It's almost as if they don't see that missing one chance means sometimes you'll never get that chance again. It's a simple truth. Let me tell you a bit about my wife. I met Kelly about 7 years ago at a race, and after dating for a year, we got married. Our families were worried because there have been a couple of divorces on both sides. My dad's first wife cheated on him, and she took everything. She got a good lawyer, and he ended up with nothing. Kelly's mom, Marcy, has had 2 husbands. She didn't cheat, but she got hurt by both. The first one drank too much and ran away, leaving her with a lot of bills. The second man, who had a son with her, also left her. He took money from their bank account to escape and never sent any money for his child. Kelly is the daughter of her mom's 3rd husband. Talk about loving punishment. It reminds me of that dog again. So you can see why they didn't believe in lasting love. They believed in having a prenuptial agreement just in case things went wrong. Kelly and I never wanted to think like that because at that time we were in love and everything felt right. But then she met up with her friends again, and I really mean again. They had been in school together. That put me on the outside right from the start, didn't it? I went to school in Western Australia, which is quite different. I once had a fight with a guy there who tried to tell me Texas was bigger than Queensland. What a fool. I told him that we have coal trains 2 miles long here. I've seen trains in Queensland with engines spread out because they were so long. You can fit England into Queensland 12 times when it comes to land size. Texas might be big, but Queensland is even bigger. I won't even start talking about the fight I had about roads in Germany versus Australia. They think they need 40 lanes on their roads. If Texas is a backyard, then Germany is just a little patch of vegetables with ants crawling all over it. What an idiot. Before you get upset, I'm not saying Texans shouldn't be proud of their state. They have a lot to be proud of. Texas produces more oil than all of Australia combined. But I just wish this guy would get his facts straight. Sure, there's not much to do with 70% of the land on the Nullarbor Plain. Even a dingo has to pack snacks just to take a break. But that's not the main point. Western Australia has beautiful views, great fishing, and mountains full of iron ore. Plus, there's Bondi Beach. That's Alan Bond. Just look up the America's Cup from '83 and you'll see what I mean. Just don't mention his business problems to anyone. After I made a comment about Texas, Kelly had to step in to stop the argument. I admit I had a bit too much to drink and I was losing my cool. If he had said one more smart thing, I would have been ready to fight. Oh, sorry, I got off track. He just annoys me with how he talks about himself. He thinks he knows everything about Australia, but all he talks about is his house. If it weren't for the L and R on his shoes, he would probably wear them incorrectly. Where was I? Oh, right, Kelly. We were having a good time until they showed up. Ever since then, things changed. Kelly gets upset when she doesn't get what she wants. I felt the heat of her sharp words many times, but that's not her biggest weapon. If her words cut like a knife, then she has love as her secret weapon, and she uses it with great skill. So, what happened next might not surprise you. Kelly talked about needing to feel lucky, which got me thinking, why does it always feel like I owe her something? Why should she be the one getting lucky? I could be lucky if I buy her jewelry or new clothes. But has she ever bought me tools or fishing gear hoping to win my favor? Not a chance. My dad always says the difference between a wife and someone else is that you know what you're getting when you pay someone else. If that doesn't work out, you can just move on. But in a marriage, you're stuck. My dad really gets going when he starts talking about wives. He says you pay for everything, and if she doesn't want to give you what you need, then you're just left with half of what you own. You should see how my dad and Marcy argue. We have to keep them apart for peace in the family. I learned the hard way not to ask him why he got married again. I got out of there fast because I knew he didn't have an answer. Oops! I drifted again. Back to the story. I know I'm not really lucky. My past experiences taught me that when Kelly gets upset, it usually takes days for her to be calm enough to talk again. I said, if you want to come to bed, I'm not stopping you. But I'm not sleeping on the couch just because you're upset. Then I started up the stairs. Kelly was furious. It was my fault, and I own that. But sometimes you just have to speak your mind. I saw Kelly pause for a moment, which gave me a glimmer of hope. But then she said, I'm not sleeping with a jerk like you. She marched up the stairs, grabbing her nightgown, and went to the spare room, slamming the door behind her. I was a bit surprised because I expected her to slam our door instead. So I won the argument but lost the chance for a good night together. Seems fair, right? But don't think that if you give in, you can still have a good time later. I learned that the hard way early in our marriage. If there's a fight, it usually just means more trouble later. So no, I don't back down from fights anymore. The best you can hope for is a tie. I thought that was the end of it. But just like always, Kelly had other plans. Saturday morning, over breakfast, she said, James, we need to talk. This is silly, the way we've been avoiding each other. I replied, I don't have a problem, Kelly. It's your friends that keep bringing things up. You just need to get them to stop. I could still feel the cold of winter in the air sticking around for a while. Kelly looked really upset. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Our friends like you and just want to know you better. That's all. It's like your name. Why do you care so much if people call you James instead of Jim or Jimmy? You shorten their names. So why can't you just let yours be shorter, like I do? You must be kidding, I replied. I really don't care about flashy cars. I just like my name the way my parents chose it. If they wanted me to be called Jim or Jimmy or anything silly, they would have named me that. But they chose James. I don't know why, but that's what they did, and I want to keep it as it is. I usually don't shorten their names, I added. It's just that they seem to like their nicknames, so I go along with it to make them comfortable. But they don't seem to feel the same way about me. Remember, I've already lost one friend and I don't want to lose another. I was getting fired up again. And that's not all. You weren't there when Caroline acted like a fool to impress me. I could see Kelly trying to hide a laugh when I said that, which just made me even more mad. Now you're overreacting, honey. How about I talk to him and try to sort this out? She suggested. I finished my coffee and stood up to go outside. I don't care what you say or do. Just don't make me change my principles or our marriage. And make sure their husbands know not to mess with you. Do whatever you want, but get them to leave us alone. I turned and went out the back door. I could tell Kelly wanted to yell. She was so angry. Instead, she stormed next door to Pam's house. Oh, I didn't tell you. The two rabbits live next door. You could hear them having fun together from a mile away, and trust me, I'm not jealous or anything. The next morning, I left for work early to avoid Kelly's lecture. I needed to think, and I could do that best at work where it was quiet. After a full day of not getting much done, I pulled into my driveway. The sight that greeted me made me feel even worse. 3 cars blocked my garage. From the looks of them, it was clear that Kelly was hosting her giggling friends. I opened the door and was met by a chorus of laughter as Kelly turned to greet me. Hey, that rhymes! I'm a poet and didn't know it. Sorry, I'll be quiet now. Hi, sweetheart. You look tired. Come sit down. I'll get you a drink and you can relax, she said. I rolled my eyes at the thought. I waved my hand and replied, I won't bother your girl talk. I'll just grab a beer and some cheese and crackers until dinner. I dropped my briefcase, loosened my tie, and headed to the kitchen, trying not to notice the looks from the women. After getting something to eat and drink, I walked out onto the patio hoping for some quiet. But it was only 5 minutes before the group followed me out, with Kelly standing closest. Sweetheart, can we talk? I groaned inwardly. I hated when she said that. The words little and talk should not go together for her. I sighed, knowing this was not what I wanted at all, but I didn't want to cause any trouble. I'm really tired, Kelly, and I just want a few minutes to relax. If it won't take long, then go ahead, I said, looking her in the eye. She seemed unsure how to start until Pamela jumped in. James, nice to see you. The reason we're here is that we want to apologize. Pam continued, It seems we all made you feel uncomfortable, and that wasn't our intention. She paused, waiting for my reaction. I wasn't really worried, but she didn't know that. Kelly spoke up. I think some of this might be my fault, sweetheart. When we girls hang out and talk, it's probably not much different than when you guys talk about us. I may have mentioned how good you are. Well, in bed. For a moment I was confused. Nobody was saying things clearly, but that's how women often are. I raised my hand to stop her. Wait a minute, Kelly. Are you saying you've been talking about our private life? Did you talk to your friends? Are you saying you told them about what goes on between us in private? I could feel my face getting hotter, and I could tell Kelly noticed. It's not what you think, she said quickly. I thought we could try something new. The idea you always liked about having another person join us? She trailed off, probably wishing she hadn't started this talk. I felt sick and angry. Seriously, Kelly? I don't like having my feelings shared with everyone. My friends and I talk about women, but I keep our private talks to myself. How would you feel if I told my friends everything? I knew it was a lost cause now. My hope had been crushed all week. There were 5 pairs of wide eyes staring at me. I always made it clear I didn't want to do that kind of thing. Is this why other women are bothering me? I was frustrated. I swept my beer bottle across the table, and to my surprise, it rolled and stopped without spilling a drop. Maybe I could tell my friends at the bar about that later. But at that moment, I was just furious with Kelly. Instead of spreading rumors with those women, how about you focus on what a good wife should be doing, like making our dinner? The women took a step back, clearly upset. I'll be free in an hour after I finish my work. If you do that, I'll be happy in our home, not just in the bedroom. I stood up and walked into the house. I was really angry. I could feel the tension in my body as I paced around. I even heard Kelly crying behind me, which confused me. Women often leave us men puzzled. I was upset about missing a night with her, but now she was the one crying because I was upset with her friends. I went upstairs to shower, hoping that would help me calm down. I doubted it would, but I wanted to feel better. When I returned, I found Kelly banging pots in the kitchen, trying to let out her anger. "What's wrong now, Kelly? I haven't done anything to deserve this." But instead of arguing, she finally told me what was bothering her. If only I could understand how to make sense of it. "I thought I was doing something nice for you," she said. "But all I got was anger and embarrassment. What was with that bottle thing? And how could you say those things in front of my friends?" "I just don't want anyone knowing our private business," I told her. "I mentioned that it was just a fantasy and I have no plans to act on it." Her expression showed me she was hurt and confused. "But why don't you want to try it?" She was getting more intense. "I think it would be fun. I've been thinking about it since you mentioned it." I took a seat at the kitchen table, trying to figure out how to explain my feelings without making things worse. "You remember the agreement our parents made us sign when we got married? There was something about it that really bothers me." "What is it?" she asked, looking at me with concern. I paused, knowing I needed to find the right words for something that was really important to me. In truth, it was about trust and keeping our life private. Kelly wiped a tear from her cheek and took a moment to think. "What else do you dislike?" I laughed quietly to myself. "Women and their ways? Yes, dear. Anything else?" Kelly shook her head. "I really don't know. It's just a lot of hypocrisy. My biggest pet peeve? I can't stand hypocrites. If I let myself think about this fantasy, I'd be a big hypocrite. And just so you know, I do agree with our prenuptial." Kelly just stared at me, trying to find the right words to say next. "You think I'm just an old stick in the mud. But you're wrong. I have the same feelings and dreams as any other man. I've had my fun when I was single, but now that I'm married, I need to leave that behind. That kind of behavior isn't good for any marriage, and especially not ours." I looked at the table and traced the pattern on the tablecloth. "I care about you, Kelly, and the last thing I want is to make you unhappy. The last few months, especially the last few weeks, have been really stressful for me with this misunderstanding between us. If I acted on this, I couldn't complain if you wanted to do the same thing. You know, be with another man. I wouldn't be able to take that, dear. It would hurt me so much and break my heart. So I set my dreams aside for the sake of our marriage. I do this for you, Kelly. Can you see now why I'm against these games you women play?" Kelly's face looked sick and angry at the same time. "Did I mention that women are really good at multitasking? Forget it. I could write about how men and women focus differently. If you really want to know, just email me, and I'll respond." "Okay." She took a few deep breaths, and I could tell she was trying to calm down. Kelly was getting fired up. "So what you're saying is that what's good for the gander isn't good for the goose. That's not what I'm saying, Kelly, and you know it. I'm saying some dreams are better left as dreams." Kelly's face grew firm. I could see the muscles in her neck tighten. "You talk about hating hypocrisy and then you act like one. Make up your mind, Jim. Which is it? You can dream and I can't?" I lowered my head. I had seen this before. When Kelly gets upset, she stops listening to what is being said and focuses only on her own view. "You're not listening, dear. I never said you couldn't have a dream. I'm saying some dreams are best left untouched. Just like my dream about being with another woman. It wouldn't be fair to you because I couldn't let you do the same." Kelly crossed her arms. "Don't you think that's a little selfish?" I looked back up at my angry wife and wondered why she was pushing this so much. To her, I said, "Yes, Kelly, it is selfish and unfair. But that's where the difference is. I haven't acted on my dream and I never will. So no, I don't think I'm selfish or unfair. Let me ask you something. Since we're talking about this, why are you so upset over this small issue?" I could see Kelly go pale at the question. "What do you mean by that?" I felt my own anger rising. I didn't like where this conversation was going. It means, "Dear wife, I know how these things work. A little flirting here and there. Then it can lead to something bigger. Then someone gets hurt and your marriage falls apart. You want to give me a dream I can live with? How about you waiting at the door with a drink when I come home? I think you have more on your mind than just that." Kelly's face turned from pale to bright red in a second. I could tell she was about to explode, and it made me think she had talked to her friends about this more than she let on. Kelly seemed to be at a breaking point. She took a deep breath and said, "Okay, James, I admit I had something else in mind. I thought if it was okay for you to have your wish, then maybe I could have mine sometime. I have dreams, too, you know." But now it seems like you're not as open as I am. You're being selfish." Kelly threw a pot she was holding into the sink and stormed up to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. Did she even hear what I said? I shook my head in disbelief and walked into the living room to grab my coat. I thought I would enjoy my meal more without hearing Kelly throw things around. I dislike arguing, especially with women. To them, an argument is just a talk that goes on until they believe they've won. I knew she was interested in asking for something more than just a simple favor. If that's what she wanted, then she could forget about it. By the time I got back, Kelly was slightly calmer but still upset. If I wanted any peace that night, it was best to sleep in the guest room. I was still frustrated over what just happened. So the rest of the night was just like the past weeks, filled with little sleep and a heavy feeling in our home. I woke up early again. I really dislike mornings, especially like this one. Waking up early is tough for my brain. After a quick cup of coffee, I made my way to work. I wanted to distract myself from my problems, and usually work helps with that, but today it just wasn't happening. Honestly, I haven't been much use to anyone lately. "Mr. Stanton wants to see you in his office," Annette said through the intercom. As I got up from my chair, I grumbled to myself, "What now?" Leonard Stanton is the owner of Stanton Chemicals and a good friend of mine, but I wasn't feeling up to chatting with him this morning. I'm a chemical engineer. I assume you already figured that out. But just so you know, I'm not a chemist like you might think. I deal with chemical processes for big factories, creating new substances for products like glue and other things. It annoys me when Kelly tells her friends I'm a chemist. For hours, I have to deal with people asking silly questions about things I don't know, like how to treat athlete's foot or what their kid should take for diarrhea. How am I supposed to know? I could suggest some chemicals, but if that's not what you want, go ask a real chemist. Just so you know, I got into chemistry when my dad gave me a junior chemistry set for my 9th birthday. I blew up our backyard a couple of times and nearly set it on fire once. I got in big trouble for that. But seriously, how was I supposed to know that adding glycerin to potassium permanganate would cause a fire? Yeah, it was a real mess. The stuff bursts into flames, and then I really had to deal with my dad. One time, I nearly set a plastic table on fire, and it dropped into some old engine oil. I knew I was in serious trouble, and that was just one of my many accidents. Where was I? Oh, right. Heading to my boss's office. No, I haven't blown up any labs yet. "Go right in, Mr. Barrymore. He's expecting you," the assistant said. I tried to smile, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. "Thanks, Tracy," I replied. Leonard looked at me as I stepped into his office. "Don't just stand there, James. Sit down and tell me what's bothering you." Leonard and I have been friends for over 10 years. He brought me into the business right after college. "What makes you think something's wrong?" I asked. He chuckled and said, "Well, for one, you skipped your funny joke today." Leonard looks like a shorter Danny DeVito with a goatee. I've joked that if he needed money, he could work as a body double. He says I'm just jealous because he has an excuse to see someone pretty while pretending to focus. "Secondly, you're scaring everyone away. What's going on with you? You've been off for days now." He pointed to the biohazard stickers on my door. "Someone clearly is upset with you. It's bad if you didn't even notice those stickers." Leonard and I always joked around. We knew which topics to avoid, like his 2 ex-wives. "It's just a rough patch with Kelly," I explained. "Nothing too serious. I'll figure it out." "Figure it out? Don't kid yourself. You're the only wall between me and my money. You own most of the shares in our company. If something happens to you, it also affects me. I'm not saying this just to help you out of kindness. I want to see you happy because it's good for both of us. Now come on, what's really bothering you? You know I'm good with these things." When Leonard brought me into the company, I had asked for stock options instead of raises. This way I could keep control of my inventions. He agreed because he needed to start small. He didn't realize at the time that his 2 ex-wives would take so much from him, leaving me as a major stockholder. When his first wife took half, I ended up with nearly equal shares. After his second wife left, I had even more power with my shares. Now, we could stop either of them from making big decisions about Leonard's business. I finally shared all my worries. I added, "I never understood why you chose those wives. When I see you with them, I always feel like they're looking for something." Leonard listened closely. I wasn't sure if he liked talking about his past. "Well, sometimes it's hard to see the real person behind the charming smile," Leonard replied. He chuckled, but his expression turned serious. So, you think she might be cheating on you? That's the problem, Leonard. I really don't know. I can't point to anything clear to show it's true. There's no proof, no pictures, no confessions, and no one has seen anything. She's not staying out late either. I can't say what she does during the day, but whenever I call the house phone, she answers. But that doesn't really prove anything, does it? It's just a feeling I have. And now, with this silly argument we're having, it makes me even more uneasy and scared. If I knew what was really going on, I could do something. Right now, all I have are doubts and questions with no answers. I just need to know if I should have someone look into her and her friends. I can give you the names of a few private detectives who can help for a fair price. I don't want to make things worse, but from past experience, it doesn't help to wait too long in these situations, son. I wonder if Leonard has talked to my dad about this. That's just one more thing on my mind. Remember that little mess in the tool shed? Oil fires and water don't go well together. I was only 10 then, okay? I looked at Leonard, feeling sad. He was saying what I had been thinking. And in a marriage, thoughts like that can really hurt it. Don't you think that's a bit extreme right now? Leonard looked down at the clear box on his table with 2 wedding rings set inside it. I get why you're holding back, James. You care about her, and you don't want to jump to conclusions. But at some point, that can be denial, my friend. You can dress it up however you want, but it looks the same. I know I might not be the best person to talk to about this, but you need to do something, and fast, before it's too late. Why not start with a shock? In the last part, Kelly asked her friends to try to charm her husband, James, but he didn't fall for it. He started to worry about Kelly's actions and thought she might not be faithful. Now he's planning how to protect himself. Let's see what happens next in the story. I placed the folder on the table in front of Kelly. Open the folder and read what's inside. When I finish my shower, we'll talk. I'm in charge in our house. I always have been and always will be. But I never got to finish my shower. What's going on, Jim? Kelly shouted through the bathroom door. I said we'll talk when I'm done washing, I replied. No, Jim, come out here now and tell me what's wrong with you, she yelled. So, she pushed me to say what was bothering me. Oh, don't look at me like that. I doubt there's a husband out there who hasn't heard the same old line. You're not wearing that, are you? You're silly if you think that's a question. It's not. It's a statement. I'm in charge here, and you better listen. Now, if you're like most husbands who don't see the signs, the answer is right there. I do have them on, sweetheart. What do you think? Mistake, my friend. You're not talking to another guy here, and you might as well be spending a lonely night alone if you walk out that door wearing those pants. I know I said I'd learn not to lose my cool early in the marriage, but this situation was different. I don't usually gamble, but this was important. Keeping my wife happy is the top priority. Here's a hint. Change the pants and hope she's in a good mood later. Maybe that way things will end well. But it all depends on why she got upset about the pants in the first place. Then it could lead to a bad time for you. But hey, you didn't lose a lot. Just a pair of comfy pants. So, why did I give in? Oh, my uncle loves football and tried to teach me some rules. According to him, what I just did was drop back, open up the play, and go for a long pass. If you know football, you get it. The rest of you, sorry. I think this is why I get distracted. I'm trying to explain what's going wrong in my life and with Kelly, so take it easy, and it might help you with your own challenges. Now back to the argument. I grabbed my towel off the hook. You read the papers. It says right at the top, prenuptial agreement. It's what we signed before we married, but now I added something to it. This is me thinking ahead. We don't need to change a silly prenuptial agreement, she snapped. What we need is for you to apologize right now, she continued, looking angrier. Getting mad and shouting won't help. Kelly, go downstairs and open some wine. We'll sit down and talk this over like grown-ups. Just give me some quiet to get dressed. I can stay calm on the outside. But inside, I felt like I wanted to scream. I felt like my quarterback waiting for a chance. Kelly turned and stormed out of the bedroom. Open your own wine. I'm too mad to talk to you now. I'm going out to cool off. Don't wait for me. I felt defeated as I flopped back onto the bed and stared at the ceiling. Get my own dinner? Get my own wine? I don't even like wine. I prefer beer. I was trying to be nice, and where did that get me? How about I just take care of my own life instead? I yelled from the bedroom, hoping she didn't hear that. I missed my chance. Game over. No good night tonight. I really dislike football. Give me rugby any day. Kelly came home around 10. I heard a noise downstairs like she was bumping into everything before she finally slumped onto the bed, not even bothering to take off her clothes. She didn't say a word or even give me a kiss, and she smelled of rum. She turned away from me and went to sleep, or more like passed out, not moving all night. I barely slept. When morning came, I was in the kitchen pouring my first cup of coffee, feeling awful, when Kelly stumbled in. "Oh no, I feel terrible," she moaned. I almost laughed because I didn't feel too bad this morning, so this is how someone with a hangover looks. "Morning, Kelly. You look awful, or like something a cat dragged in." She couldn't argue back since she was feeling so bad. I felt safe to ask, "Can we talk about that agreement this afternoon? I know it was a little sneaky, but you should take chances when they come, especially when they're handed to you like this." It was obvious Kelly had a terrible headache from drinking too much the night before. She just groaned and said, "I can't talk about it now." She rested her head on her arms at the table, her hair a mess. Part of me felt sorry for her. The other part wanted to cheer. Yes, I decided to share my thoughts and went off to work, feeling relieved that the situation wasn't switched. So far, everything was happening just like Leonard and I had thought. Leonard said that Kelly would be upset at first, but if she truly loved me and had nothing to hide, she would eventually agree to the changes in the agreement. I still felt guilty about it, but I realized that while love is important in a marriage, it's not always strong enough to keep everything secure. There were other dark things that could tear our relationship apart if we were not careful. I know. I sound pessimistic. But think about it. If she didn't sign the agreement, it would mean she might already be unfaithful, and I didn't want to make her stop whatever she might be doing. I love Kelly a lot, but if that was true, I might need to spy on her. I felt heavy in my chest as I drove home, knowing I had to confront my wife. I almost expected to see a lot of cars in the driveway, so I was surprised there was just space. When the garage door opened, I was even more surprised to see Kelly's car still in there. As I entered from the garage, I spotted Kelly in shock number 3. She wasn't next door. She was in the living room with 2 glasses of wine and the agreement on the coffee table. I took a deep breath and thought, now it's time to face this. Don't back down now. It's a long shot, but worth it. Kelly was kind enough to wait for me to put my briefcase away and take off my tie. I thought we might need a drink before talking. She pointed at the papers on the table. "You might be right, my dear. Let me start by saying that I'm really not happy about needing to do this. However, I think once you hear my reasons, you will understand it won't hurt our marriage." Kelly took a sip of her wine and frowned. "I'm not so sure about that, James. It sounds like you don't trust me anymore." I picked up my wine, remembering I'd said I hated it. I gulped it down anyway and sat beside her on the couch. It made me think that maybe Kelly was giving in, and the wine showed her unhappiness. No, my dear, that's not what I mean. Deep down, I knew I was only partly telling the truth. I trusted Kelly, but I wasn't sure how much I could trust her, and that made me angry. I never thought I would think like this. Yes, I had worries that something was off between us, and I wanted to fix it. All this was a way to remove any uncertainty. I took her hand and held it. "I have something to say sorry for, and I hope you'll listen before you interrupt." Kelly nodded, but my doubt crept in. I could read her face, and I guessed what she was thinking. "Apologies are all I want to hear from you, James." It showed clearly, but she kept quiet. I continued. "I think this all started because I stupidly shared my fantasy with you. I believe this made you feel uneasy in our relationship. For that, I am truly sorry, and I ask for your forgiveness." I took another big sip of wine. Yuck, it tasted terrible, and my face must have shown it because Kelly gave me a teasing smile. "I think sharing my fantasy made you feel like you could lose me, and that is so far from the truth, dear. But I understand what you might have thought. If I agreed and let you help me with this, it might have felt like you were less important." Kelly stared at me in confusion for a moment. "What do you mean?" I laughed at her question. "It means someone who allows their partner to be with other partners while they sit back and watch or maybe join in." Whatever. I could see she was about to argue, so I stopped her. "Before you say it, I do not want an open marriage. I'm hoping this change to the agreement will ease your worries. and we can go back to being loving again. I miss your warm touch and your smile, my love. Maybe I was trying a bit too hard, but I hoped it would feel genuine to her because it was. Please don't be mad. I was fighting for our marriage. Kelly looked sad for a moment. I guessed this wasn't what she had hoped for, but she managed to smile. You silly thing. I was never worried about you leaving me. I wanted you to experience your fantasy. I'm sorry I didn't talk to you about it first. Asking our friends for help was my mistake, and I apologize for that. I felt better and smiled. You don't need to say sorry. It was a nice thought, and thank you for thinking of me. But as I said, I could never go through with it for the reasons I shared before. I was trying to charm her. I felt certain I had won this round, and now I wanted to keep going. Kelly looked at the forms like they were about to attack her. Do you still want to sign this? I mean, do you want to send me away with nothing? Kelly bit her lip. Well, yes and no. I guess it's harder for you than for me. If we split, I might leave with just my clothes, but you would have to pay me for the next 10 years. What made you add that in? It's funny, but that's exactly what I asked Leonard when we were working on this plan. He said it would help her accept the changes. Are your skirts clean? I nodded. Of course they are. So you don't have a problem then, right? I thought helping her accept wasn't what he really meant. I'm the one who hinted at a third partner, and that made it seem like I was unhappy in our marriage. But I'm not. I love being married to you, Kelly. I just wanted to show you that I'm not trying to force this change in our agreement. I'm not being difficult or looking for a fight. I really believe this could help us through a tough time and even make our marriage stronger. Okay, that was only partly true, but I didn't want to sound completely clueless. Kelly broke down, which caught me off guard. I had already mentioned the wine, so it wasn't a total surprise, but I thought she would argue more. Wow. Yet another mystery to figure out about how women think. Okay, James, if this is what you need to make things better, I'll go along with it. But let me make one thing clear. I don't need it. And if it ever leads to a divorce and you're the one who wants it, I'll toss this agreement in the trash. I really think that's unfair, to say the least. I gave Kelly a sad smile. It may not show, but I agree with you on that. I spoke before she could argue again. Life is full of hard choices. Can you meet at our lawyer's office tomorrow at 11:30 to sign the document? Kelly went to the kitchen to start dinner while I took a quick look at the latest calls from our home phone. As I thought, the last 4 calls were to her friends. She must have been either complaining or asking for advice. I knew what Kelly would do if I ever cheated. I love my wife completely, but I also knew how she reacted to anyone who hurt her. And that agreement would definitely be part of the divorce if it ever came to that. We met 5 minutes before the meeting time, and Kelly threw one last remark in the struggle for control. I hope this doesn't take long, James. I have a lot of shopping to do before the day ends. I hated this push and pull, this battle to see who was stronger. I always saw Kelly as my equal, but this was leaving a bad taste in my mouth. I couldn't understand why she didn't see that talking and finding common ground was what made our marriage work. Instead, she seemed to enjoy this fight. My eyebrow raised with a question. All this has made me feel down, and I need some shopping to cheer me up. I have a $15,000 credit card, and I plan to use it for that therapy, maybe even max it out. So be ready for the bill from the bank, and don't say you weren't warned. She ended with a cheeky and rebellious smile. All right, this one is a draw too, though an expensive one. I knew I wasn't going to win, but $15,000 seemed excessive. Why do women love their cards so much? If it's not for nails, it's for surgeries. Then there are all the other things added to the bill, and I cringed at what Kelly said, still nodding. All for the sake of our marriage, dear. I sighed without much excitement, that old joke about wives and wallets running through my mind. Months passed with me keeping a close watch on Kelly and her new friend. While she kept seeing him, she certainly backed off a lot. I even started to talk with them again, but only a little. We finally got past that rough patch. We saw them at parties, but they mostly kept to themselves. While Kelly would sometimes chat with them, she was never out of my sight. Things at home improved a lot. Our love life got better, and I felt like I was winning. So why was I still waiting for something bad to happen? Why do you look at me like that? I understand supply and demand. Kelly might be building up her options to take control. Yeah, If she decides to cut those options, I might be the one to suffer. I didn't like that idea. I hated being on guard and felt it was changing me into a cynic, like my father. 2 months later, Leonard called me into his office again. "Damn it, Leonard, you need to stop eating that junk. How are we ever going to pull off that silly contest at the Christmas party?" Leonard looked at me from his chair, eyeing the young guy standing before him. "And no, I'm not a mind reader. If I were, I wouldn't be having so much trouble with my wife." I knew that was on his mind since he had said it to me before while tossing his half-eaten donut into the box, wearing a goofy grin. "Things must be going well at home, James," he said through his mouthful. "What makes you think that?" I replied. Leonard wore a huge smile, clearly enjoying himself as he swallowed and cleared his throat. "Because you're back to teasing me about my height. I keep telling you I'm not a little person. I barely missed that by 2 inches. "Stupid inches," he said, trying to clean a bit of jam from the corner of his mouth. "Just so you know, I'm 10 in my loafers." He shrugged like it was no big deal. I burst out laughing. "Wow, boss, maybe it's my 6'4", but you look shorter than that." "Are you wearing platform shoes? You get to go on a safari for 4 great days and 3 lonely nights," Leonard joked. "What? Oh, no! I shouldn't have said that." "Where?" I asked. "Caxton Jackson Enterprises needs a new solvent that is good for the earth. Your project fits perfectly. It might need some tweaks to match what they want, but that's up to you. It's your baby, and I trust you'll take care of it," he added. "But Caxton is very remote. I take back everything I've said about you, Leonard. You're stuck in a tough spot. How long do I have to be there, and when can I leave? I know I'm in a tough spot, James. That's why we work well together. We deal with so much in life. Where would we be without it? You'll figure it out soon. You leave tomorrow. There's just enough time to get home, give your wife a quick kiss, and pack a couple of bags before you go. This business could be really profitable if we can get it right. Listen, Leonard, I know you manage things well, but I'm an engineer, not a salesman. Why do I have to handle this?" Leonard looked at me, amused. "I know you're my engineer, James, but my salesman Jeffers already did the sales pitch. Now you need to clear up any questions they have and make sure our offer is what they really want." "Got it," I grumbled. "Fine, I understand." "Great, now get going, and stop with that smirk." I had a feeling my luck was about to change. Kelly wasn't too happy about this trip. I wasn't surprised. "Why so long, honey? Most trips are just 1 day or overnight. What am I supposed to do alone for 4 nights? "To start with, it's not 4 nights, but 4 days and 3 nights. Plus, it means I might get a nice promotion and better pay instead of just stock options. I need to pay off that credit card for your therapy, but it's going to happen only if this goes well. You need to do the same. Enjoy your shopping and miss me until I come back Saturday." Kelly's tone grew tough. "Don't go there, James. You know what I said about this. You've only got yourself to blame. You better not make this a regular thing. You know I'm not great at keeping myself busy at night." "I can't keep spending money on therapy sessions so soon," I said half-jokingly. Kelly saw how serious I was. She laughed. "I'm just messing with you. I hate it when we're not getting along. I'll try to remember to call every night." Caxton was just as I remembered. Not much to do but work and get home. Work was tough, and they wanted more than I could give. Trying to explain how my solvent works to the big bosses was exhausting, especially since most of them didn't even know the difference between H2O and O2. People often mixed those two up. I managed to sort out their needs and came through for Leonard. It was Friday night, and I was at the restaurant bar in the Plains Hotel. I had just talked to Kelly, and she said she missed me. I tried to comfort her as best as I could. Kelly asked where I was eating, and I told her the only decent place in town was the hotel. It was old but clean, the only place you could eat safely. I was sitting at the bar talking to a salesman as I waited for a table. Just then, my new friend got up and left. I was about to order another beer when I heard a voice. "Is this seat taken?" It was a pretty redhead in her 20s standing next to me. "No, it's all yours," I said smoothly. She was dressed nicely, a bit more fancy than the restaurant. "Waiting for a table?" I asked to make conversation. She smiled. "Yes and no. I'm waiting for my date. He was supposed to be here 30 minutes ago. I thought I'd come in for a drink while I waited, but I think I've been stood up." I signaled the bartender. "Can I buy you a drink while you wait?" "That would be nice, thank you." She ordered a white wine. By the way, my name is Sarah. Nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm James. Just James, not Jim or Jimmy. I placed our drink orders and we exchanged small talk. She gave me that look people get when I start my little speech. Do you come here often, Sarah? I asked to change the subject. Goodness, no. I don't know why Bill wanted to meet here, she said. I travel a lot, and this would be the worst place to get stuck for the night. My date was someone from school. When he found out I was in town for the day, he asked me to dinner. You can't depend on anyone these days. Are you from around here, James? Sarah asked while sipping her wine. We've just met, and you're already teasing me? I chuckled. It's the back of nowhere if you ask me. Unlike you, I'm here for work. I can't wait to leave tomorrow afternoon. A waiter came by and said there was now a table for me. I looked at Sarah and thought, why not? The tune of that Newcastle song popped into my head. Do you remember it? Just Google it. Would you do me the favor of having dinner with me? Since your date is late, I'd appreciate the company. I really hate eating alone. I could see her hesitate for a second before she relaxed. Oh, what the heck? If he can't be on time, he's not worth it. Thank you, I'd love to, James. Dinner was nice, mainly because I had someone to talk to. We shared our interests, both work and play. I felt a bit unsure when Sarah started asking personal questions, but we managed to avoid anything too awkward. Just as we finished dessert, things got a little too forward. She hinted at continuing the evening with dancing or somewhere more private. I raised my left hand and twirled the ring on it, smiling. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but I'm happily married, Sarah. Thank you for the compliment. You're a beautiful woman. I just want to be clear that I'm only with one woman. Sarah blushed. Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. It's just that I've been on the road for so long and I found you interesting and funny. You're refreshing. I chuckled at the thought that she was trying so hard to apologize. It's okay, Sarah. I've enjoyed our time together. I'm happy to be your dinner companion since your date didn't show up. Your company has been fun and engaging. I really hate eating alone, and it's nice to have someone like you. When I got home, Kelly met me at the door in a black lace outfit. She was wearing stockings and high heels. They say women dress to impress, and let me tell you, the less they wear, the more I like it. She might not have been in only heels, but it was close enough for me to smile. I get the feeling I'm not off work yet, I said with a big grin. You're right, lover. You've got some making up to do for the lonely nights I've had, she replied. You'd be lucky if I don't tire you out. With that, she began to pull me toward the bedroom. I walked into Leonard's office feeling great. Who's the man? I asked. Leonard looked me over and replied, I see you think you're the man, but all I see is a giraffe on steroids. How did your trip go? It couldn't have gone better. I'll go back in a couple of weeks to finalize some details, but it was a success. Stanton Chemicals is looking at good profits now, I said. I also thanked him for helping with my home life. Things have been much better. Leonard paused, but then smiled and waved his hand. It's easy to see clearly when you're not wearing rose-colored glasses. He looked like he wanted to say more, but stopped. Having 2 failed marriages does that to a man, he said. I'll make sure you get a little extra in your pay this week. Good job, son. The weeks flew by, and my home life returned to normal. I was getting ready for my second trip to Caxton and worried about what Kelly might say about me being gone again. It was just overnight, but if things went wrong, I might have to stay longer. I promised I would get home as fast as I could. To my surprise, Kelly replied, I understand, sweetheart. We got through your last trip just fine. I noticed a playful look in her eyes. Barely. If you take your vitamins, you'll be okay. I know you work hard to give us a good life, and I really appreciate it, sweetie. I laughed a little. I can already tell I need to ask Leonard for a whole week off this time. This trip was no better than the last one. In fact, I ended up with more work so that I could leave this awful place a day early if I could. Long hours and tighter schedules made it a very tiring trip. My phone call home tonight would be the only thing that would make me feel better. I was sitting at my table trying to figure out what to eat when the waitress came over. Excuse me, Mr. Barrymore. Would you like some company for dinner? There's a lady at the bar who's here on her own, she said, looking at me. I turned my head to see who she meant, and wow, if she was the one I was staring at. Of course she was. She was the only woman alone in the restaurant, and she was really beautiful. Send her over, I said. Eating alone is pretty boring. The waitress helped her sit down and introduced us. "Mr. Barrymore, this is Miss Stevens. Would you like a menu, Miss Stevens?" she asked. The woman nodded and reached out her hand. "Hi, I'm Michelle. Only my friends call me Mickey. Nice to meet you, Mr. Barrymore. I hope I'm not bothering you during your meal." I nearly knocked over my chair getting up to greet her. "Not at all. I'm happy to have some company. My name is James. Please sit." I was so amazed by her that I forgot to say that I prefer being called James, not Jim. Have you ever met someone you dreamed about? Well, I can say I have now. This woman seemed so perfect, like I had ordered her to be just the way she was. She was tall and had long, shiny blonde hair. I was almost worried I looked silly staring at her. Wow, she was something else. As our food arrived and drinks were poured, the conversation was nice, but I was a bit nervous. I mean, looking at Michelle was like seeing a work of art. I felt like I could only think about her and not much else. The other thoughts I usually had were probably busy checking out how lovely she was. I could just picture my friend Norman, who would be drooling by now. But I was glad that my brain was still focused enough to keep me out of trouble and to think about what to say. But I felt something strange. Once I got over the shock of meeting someone so amazing, I noticed Michelle was taking a moment between bites, fork in hand, looking at me. "Is something on your mind, James?" she asked. I put down my knife and fork and wiped my mouth on a napkin, trying to gather my thoughts. There was something I needed to say. "Well, I'm a bit puzzled by how lucky I am lately," I said. That sounded too formal. She set her fork down and sipped her wine. "Puzzled? What do you mean, James?" She called me James again. Not Jim, which was odd because most people just shortened it. Alarm bells started ringing in my head. I took a moment to look around the restaurant. Now that I had my wits about me, I realized I needed to be more careful in how I spoke. I was here a couple of weeks ago and met another beautiful woman for dinner. And now, here I am again with another incredible woman. It makes me wonder what I've done to deserve this good luck. Michelle looked at me with her head tilted. "One might think you are being too careful, James." "Maybe I am," I admitted, feeling uneasy. "My sister just had a baby and is still in the hospital. I came here to see her, not wanting to cook for myself. I just wanted some good food and maybe a nice conversation. Is that so strange?" I smiled, trying to lighten the moment. "Not at all, Michelle. It's just that you seem so perfect. You must be around 6 feet tall. Your legs seem to reach all the way up. And your blue eyes are just stunning. They seem to shine, and your long blonde hair flows beautifully. Here's a simpler version of your text, but your other lovely qualities are great too. That dress fits you so well. It looks like it was made just for you." Michelle blushed when I talked about how she looked. "Why, James? Are you trying to charm me?" she asked, batting her eyelashes. "Thank you for your nice words, but just so you know, I am almost 5'11". I try not to be vain, but like many women, I do enjoy feeling wanted." She took another bite from her plate while I waited. I thought about how Caroline had tried to be charming, but now it seemed silly next to Michelle. It looked like Michelle wanted to say, "With your compliments, what are we waiting for?" I almost laughed, but held it in. I realized Michelle's clothes were chosen with this situation in mind. Her gestures were even softer than Caroline's. This woman knew how to get attention. "I apologize if I gave you the wrong idea," I said. "You have every right to feel proud. I'm interested in your intentions, not just your looks." I nodded toward a man in the corner. That guy seems more interested in us than anyone else. I could see why, too. It puffed up my ego to know others were jealous. I would need to tone it down after tonight to avoid seeming arrogant. That man looked familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen him. It was clear that Michelle knew how to attract attention, and her smile showed it. But she seemed a bit uneasy with the direction of our chat. I noticed there were 4 empty tables around us. "I understand you want company," I said. "You look around 25 and I'm 10 years older. There are at least 2 men here closer to your age and better looking too." Michelle corrected me. "I turn 30 next month, but thank you." She was clearly trying to get my attention back. I nodded but kept going. "I don't want to upset you, but I feel there's more to our dinner than I know. You remember that attractive woman I mentioned? She made it clear that if I was interested, the night could go very differently. Now I have you here almost offering the same." "Can you explain that to me?" Michelle took a long sip of her wine and looked away for a moment. You seem to think poorly of how others find you attractive, Mr. Barrymore, she said. I noticed she was changing the way she addressed me. You definitely stand out here, she continued, trying to keep things professional. That made me worry. Was she just trying to earn a living? I really hoped she wasn't working that way. But then a worse thought hit me, so I decided to push a little. Oh, you're good, but not good enough. This is not about your skills. My father used to say that many people will try to trick you, so don't fool yourself too. Michelle listened quietly. I know I have my flaws, many more than I'd like to think about, but I'm aware that I'm not the best-looking man in the room. I told Michelle about my wife and what had been happening lately. I saw her focus closely, and then her face changed as I spoke about the prenup and my wife's friends. So, you think your wife is trying to set you up? She asked. Yes, my dear. If it weren't for that, I might have missed what you are about tonight. Michelle sat quietly, hands in her lap. Your concerns are valid, Mr. Barrymore. That made me feel uneasy instead of proud of my detective skills. It's time to get honest, she said. I work with a group that deals with unfaithful spouses. We set a trap and wait for the cheater to fall into it. I could see my face getting tense with annoyance. Before you judge me, I want to say that I've never slept with any of the men I'm paid to attract. The man in the corner is my bodyguard in case things get out of hand. That last part seemed like a warning to me. I nodded, surprisingly relieved to know she wasn't just some common escort. Now I remembered where I'd seen him before. I had talked to him here too when another woman arrived. What was her name? I snapped my fingers trying to think. Sarah? Yes, that's right, Michelle said. Barrymore, my partner's name is Sarah and we work as a team. It's smarter for us to keep an eye on you rather than try to get you alone. Your wife came to us with worries that you might be cheating while you were away on business trips. She gave us your photo and where you usually go, and then it was up to us to follow through. This time, she mentioned that you like tall blonde women. That's why I'm here now. It feels like we've both been put in a tricky situation. I nodded. So that's why you don't shorten my name like others do. Sarah knows I have a thing for guys named James, right? Michelle looked a little embarrassed, but nodded. My feelings shifted quickly from happy to sad, and then a little angry, but I kept that out of my voice. It's strange and sad to think a woman like you would choose this kind of work. Why are you in such a tough job? Michelle turned to the side, thinking, You just talked about my looks. And without trying to be too proud, you've kindly said I'm almost perfect. But I nodded. There's always something to think about, right? You're right, James. All this glamour and show come with a cost. This surprised me. There was more to her than I realized. As nice as she seemed, Michelle knew what was really important. She didn't stop using her looks, but then again, who doesn't? Kevin, the guy with me, is a great example of that cost. You said he's more attractive than you, and that's true. Like me, he can have almost any woman he wants. Michelle wiped a tear from her eye. She seemed upset, so I waited for her to calm down a bit. But with that good-looking face comes a big ego and bad attitude that's ugly inside. Michelle paused to think, then went on. He proves the saying that beauty is only skin deep, while ugly goes all the way through. He fits the bad boy type, which can be exciting for brief flings, but not great for being a good partner. For that kind of relationship, he doesn't come close to being as good as you, James. I watched as another tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. Even with my good looks, I can't keep their attention for long. That's where my beauty is a double-edged sword. Michelle took a moment to steady herself. Men like you, who are better inside, often feel shy around me because of how I look. I've been married twice to men as good-looking as Kevin and my last partner. So having 2 failed marriages and 1 long relationship in 10 years isn't great, James. They all cheated because they thought they could for some silly reason. That's a big part of why I'm in this job. I can't stand cheating. I listened to Michelle's heartfelt words and really felt for her. I'm sorry I misjudged you, Michelle. I have to admit I felt a bit envious, and it hurts to say that. Michelle smiled sadly. What was it you told Sarah? Don't beat yourself up over it. We all have our struggles. Mine might be a bit lighter than others. For what it's worth, I'm glad you stayed true to yourself and didn't give in to my charms. It gives me hope that maybe there's a special person out there even for me. Am I right that you haven't fallen for me and probably didn't plan to either? I dropped my head and smiled. She almost had me. I have to tell you, Michelle, if I were ever to break my vows, you would be the one woman who could sway me. I know that most men would think I'm crazy for not chasing you, but I have my principles, and I can't break them, not even for you. To make sure you don't feel slighted, if I hadn't figured you out by the end of dinner, I'd have gone back to my room, banging my head against the wall for ignoring my values. Knowing the truth saved me from a headache. I chuckled. Tears streamed from Michelle's chin as she laughed at my joke. Thank you, James. Thank you for helping me believe in love and the value of marriage. I'm just sorry it has cost you so much. Her words hit me harder than I expected. The truth is, I hadn't thought about my marriage while talking to Michelle. It troubled me that although I hadn't cheated physically, my thoughts had strayed. I decided to think about that later when I had more time, but at least I could enjoy this moment with such an amazing woman. As dinner came to an end and Michelle got ready to leave, I took her hand and lightly kissed her cheek. I'll remember tonight forever, Michelle. And if it helps, I believe your beauty runs deeper than just how you look. If things were different, I would love to find out just how deep that goes. I know this might sound odd, but thank you for a really nice evening. Michelle's face lit up when she turned to leave, but then she stopped and looked back at me, smiling. You know, James, one of your best qualities is how you make people feel special. Sarah had told me that before I met you, and I agree. Kevin may look good, but when it comes to personality, he can't compare to you, James. She winked and left, making me feel good and sad at the same time. When I got back to my room and closed the door, I realized I had kept my anger in check all night because of Michelle's charm. But alone now, I let my anger out by throwing a glass against the wall. It was directed at Kelly, that dishonest woman. I knew I needed to call home, but I wasn't sure I could stay calm. I didn't want to give anything away. I still had no proof, but my suspicions were growing stronger. I needed something more than just feelings. To find out if Kelly was being unfaithful or not, I had to keep her in the dark, just as she had done with me. I hate how people play mind games just for fun. Hi, sweetie. How are you? I kept it simple. Kelly giggled, and I felt a mix of anger and nausea at her cheerfulness. How do you think I'm doing? Are you coming home as planned? I felt like I could reach through the phone and shake her. Suddenly, I realized why she might think I wouldn't come home. Maybe she thought I was with Michelle and would stay longer. I needed to stay calm, so I told her I wouldn't be home tomorrow, but the day after. I'll call you when I know more, but you can expect me to be gone at least 2 more days. Can you handle that? I wanted to break the phone in frustration. Kelly seemed a bit upset, but she accepted what I said. Well, there's not much we can do. Just get home as soon as you can, baby. That wasn't like the Kelly I knew. She usually complained more than that. She should be worried and upset. Her calm response was very uncharacteristic. I felt uneasy as she called me darling, but I managed to reply, I will, sweetie, I miss you. I'm really tired from work. I just want to go to bed. I'll be home as quickly as I can. That part was true. I finished my work and planned to take the first flight out in the morning, so I should be home by lunch. The next afternoon, I walked into Leonard's office and dropped a pair of sunglasses on his desk. I hoped he wouldn't notice them before I spoke. What are these for, James? He asked, holding them up to look through. Just a heads up, the rose-colored glasses are off. Leonard, I think you might have been more right than I wanted to believe. Leonard's expression changed and he tossed the glasses into the trash. I thought you weren't coming back for another day or so. Did you find something out? I shook my head. Not for sure, but I have serious doubts about her being faithful. Enough to put one of your guys on her case. How did you know I wouldn't be back soon? Leonard leaned back in his chair, fingers laced behind his head. Okay, James. Fate has given you a wake-up call. What matters now is whether you lie down and accept it or get up and keep living your life. What are you going to do? He didn't answer my question, but I figured I'd find out soon enough. For now, I had to keep it together, go home and pretend I didn't suspect anything, just like the fool Kelly thinks I am. Meanwhile, I needed to hire someone to watch her. That's going to be tough. I wasn't good at pretending, especially with feeling like I needed to follow her. I don't know who she's with, I thought. Leonard leaned forward, fidgeting with his thumbs. I might be able to help with that. I stared at him, waiting for him to continue. I've been checking up on her for you. I knew you were too involved to do it yourself. I sat down heavily, my legs feeling weak as I told Leonard my worries. I hoped there was a simple explanation for everything, but Leonard's serious look made me fear the worst. I felt nervous as I waited for him to speak. I sensed something was off from your first trip. My guy was keeping an eye on Kelly while you were away. He didn't find any clear proof of anything wrong. She spent a lot of time next door with many people coming and going. I wasn't sure what to think about it, so I did something that could really get me in trouble if it got out. I tapped your phone line, and that's where I found out everything. Leonard slid 2 tapes across the desk to me. We still don't have any pictures of her doing anything wrong, but these are photos of everyone who visited while your wife was next door, Leonard said as he handed me an envelope. I opened it and looked inside. Don't worry about the phone tap. I'll sign any paper you need for it. It's my phone, and I pay the bills, so I can do what I want. Looking at the photos, I said angrily, that's the 4. Every last one of them, plus a couple of others I met on different days. Did you listen to the conversations? Is that why you thought I was coming home soon? Leonard nodded. Yeah. I heard your talk with Kelly last night. She called someone named Carol and set up a party for tonight next door at Pam's place. If you weren't coming home, I would have tried to get some pictures for you, though I knew it was a long shot. My boy said that all the blinds were tightly shut, so getting anything would be tough. It's up to you, James, but if you don't want to wait, we can go tonight. You won't have to pretend with her until you get some proof. I just sat in the chair and stared at my feet in disappointment. This is a real mess, Leonard. A real mess. What did I do wrong? Leonard picked up a clear box on his desk and fiddled with it. I know, James. You don't deserve this, my friend. No one does. Don't blame yourself. From what I saw, you treated her well. She just got involved with a bad group. You can't be blamed for that. She's not a child who needs someone to watch her. She needs to own up to her choices. Do you want to listen to the tape by yourself? I don't know. You've already heard it, so it doesn't change anything, does it? You being here might stop me from losing my temper in your office. Leonard knew those were statements, not questions, and didn't answer. Listening to the taped conversation was one of the hardest things I've ever done. The jokes and disrespect really made me furious and sick at the same time. I once thought I might be partly to blame for her downfall. That was until her last phone call with Caroline. With every word from Kelly, I felt my love for her fade a little more, moving towards nothing. It took a couple of days to get the tap ready for your first trip, Leonard said, sliding a tape into the player, bringing me back to that moment. It was the Friday night before you came home on Saturday. It doesn't prove anything unless you know what they're saying, and you can't really take it to court. Leonard paused and asked again, Are you sure you want to hear it? I looked at him. No way. I don't want to hear that. My wife is messing around with everyone in the neighborhood. But I guess I can't change that now, can I? Leonard, despite his serious face, looked like he was remembering his own marriage troubles. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have snapped at you like that. Leonard showed some regret in his serious expression. That's okay, friend. I totally get where you are. It's hard to deal with. I've been through this 2 times, and I can tell you, the second time wasn't any easier. You talk too much. Just hit the play button, I said. I looked up at him, and he gave me a sad smile. Hi, Pam. Is everything ready for tonight? A voice said from the tape. Sure is. What time will you be over? If he calls on time, it should be the same as Wednesday night. My stomach dropped. She didn't wait one night to go off with who knows who. I remembered her words when I got back from my first trip. You have some work to do to make up for the 3 lonely nights I had to deal with. Yeah, right. I thought she wasn't feeling so lonely now. You're going to wear us out, girl. Just have those cards ready. I'm feeling lucky tonight. We'll be waiting, Kel. Leonard, stop the tape. Is that all we have from my first trip? Not much, I know. The rest is yours. And her call that night. Nothing for the next day either. It would have been good to have the tap running before you left. But I didn't want to say anything until I had some proof. Like I said before, it sounds like she's just going over for a card game, which isn't necessarily cheating. If it weren't for the photos of everyone, then I wouldn't have kept up the tap. Leonard put in the second tape. This one is a bit worse, though. I would soon find out that Leonard often understates problems. He hit play, and there was small talk about her mother and charities Kelly was involved in. Then came the recording with me from last night. That's when everything fell apart. Yeah, Carol, it's me. I just got off the phone with Jack, Ash, Jimmy. He's extending his trip. Are you sure? That's unusual, isn't it? You bet. I'm sure the blonde woman finally got to him. But don't jump to conclusions, Kel. Think about it. He's in Caxton, for crying out loud. That's so far away. You should have heard him going on about his first trip. There can only be one reason he's staying longer, and that's because he feels that I'm sure he hasn't even made a move on that woman yet. I know how he is. He'll be taking his time so he doesn't scare her away, that is, if he ever gets close to her at all. But that's not our concern. The plan is to keep him thinking he can have her, and I'll have the upper hand. It sounds promising. It's your call, Kel. You bet it does, guys. There's that saying about how men can only focus on one thing at a time. I knew he couldn't help himself with that blonde woman we heard about. She fits right into his dream girl image. We really lucked out there. I think we should celebrate. How about planning a party for me? I'm not sure, Kel. The last thing we want to do is rush things. We've all had a great 6 months with you, but let's not jump ahead. We don't want Jimmy to think you're playing games with him. I know, Carol, but I'm feeling really excited about this. I was thrilled when he shared that fantasy of his. It was a bit silly, but it made me think of possibilities. All those tricks he tried to play just annoyed me. The first woman they picked wasn't what he liked. Sure, he can be a bit of a hypocrite. But he does know what he wants. After all, he married me, didn't he? Then there was silence on the phone, followed by laughter. I think you need to tone it down a bit, Kel. You can be a bit vain. You told me it would be better to have him around, remember? Well, that didn't work out so well. You could have joined a club instead. Not really, sweetie. I don't want him getting anything I wouldn't give him at home. That's why I let you and the others try to charm him. This way, I have control over what happens. More laughter and some noise. Wait a second, Carol, I'm making myself a cup of tea. A little more silence. All right, I'm back. We stopped our fun when he was home since he wouldn't notice any of you and got upset when we pushed him. I wouldn't have signed that messy thing if we hadn't come up with a plan to trap him. I've really missed our fun times. He's not in town now, so we can do what we want until he gets back. It's your choice, but you won't get any pushback from the guys. They really enjoy being with that woman. The girls and I have a great time together, especially with your quick wit. I'll have the guys get ready before you arrive to see who goes first. Charm them, Kel. Caroline laughed. By now I was feeling really heated, and I could feel my heart pounding. I wasn't looking at Leonard, but I felt like he was watching me. I was staring at a brass urn in his office and imagining what it would be like to hit each of those jerks. By the way, tell the guys I want my favorite dessert. One from each of them. I want to see what it will be like when I have Jimmy in my grasp, if I decide to share my own special recipe. Leonard must have noticed my pale face and he tossed a wastebasket to me. I lost my lunch in 2 big waves. Caroline laughed. I can't believe you actually dislike him that much and still stay married. Of course I don't hate him, I just dislike losing to him. He's made me angry with all this nonsense. So I plan to get back at him, can you imagine? He told me he didn't want to make dinner for me. I nearly lost my cool then, but I had to hold it together. I pretended I didn't understand what he meant. I tried to remember our conversation. She paused for a moment. What does he take me for? Some clueless fool like that woman he's trying to charm? Does he really think I'd let him do that? He'd be lucky if I did. But there was silence on the phone while I ground my teeth and spat into the basket. Then Caroline laughed. You've already got him in a trap, Kel. More laughter followed, and the women burst out again. Well, look at that I have after all. Once I calmed down, I continued. If I had shown him that I know more, he'd just hound me for strange things. More laughter. I felt like I could just get up and shake my loving wife. But you enjoy strange things, right? Caroline asked, still laughing. I know, but I need something to keep him interested in me. Plus, I get all I want from your guys. Leonard could see my expression, but I couldn't look at him while they regained their composure. Don't mess with me, Carol. You can't say you give Ben everything he asks for. Not at all. But we both get that it's about giving and taking. As long as we wives keep the demand higher than what we give, we're in control. Not that I have too many problems with my muscle-headed husband. Just a little affection now and then, and he's as happy as a kid in a candy store. That's my thought. Exactly, Carol. By the time I'm done with Jim, he'll be the kind of husband I want. Yes, dear. No, dear. Whatever you say, dear. He'll be eager to please me just so I don't send him packing like his dad's first wife did. Otherwise, he'll be paying me for the next 10 years to mess around with anyone I want. Don't get me wrong, he's a good guy in many ways, and he adores me. I have a partner who takes care of me and shares the work at home, and I really appreciate him for that. But I wish he would change his attitude and be more loving. If he could do that, then he would be just what I need to be happy. While I was still feeling sick from the phone call, Leonard handed me some tissues. "Don't take this the wrong way," he said, "but it's nice to see you're reacting the same way I did. For a moment, I thought I'd made a mistake giving you the bucket." This was the second time I heard that news, and I still felt terrible inside. I couldn't look up for a long time. I was embarrassed to say that I was crying really hard. The only bit of comfort I had was knowing Leonard had felt the same way before, so he understood my feelings. But it still bothered me that I felt weak and couldn't handle the situation better. Unless you've gone through it yourself, you can't really know how it affects your self-esteem. We spent the rest of the afternoon thinking of different ways to end this party, and finally found an idea that seemed like it would have a big impact without too much work. It would be easier than I thought, and with Leonard's help it would be simple to set up. I stood in the dark, watching and waiting for the right time to show myself. I felt nervous, like I could take on anyone. To calm myself, I thought about my friends who had always been there for me. I spotted one of the men from the pictures as he pulled up and parked his car in my driveway. What a fool. He had some guts, but not much sense. He adjusted himself like he owned the place, probably thinking that parking here was fine because he was coming to see my wife. As he walked out through the gate, I stepped out from the bushes and pushed him against a car parked by the street. I was angry. "Hey, I know what you're up to." He looked shocked and shouted, "Get off me!" I kept my weight on him. It made me feel better to see fear in his eyes. "Steve, right? I'll let you go, but only if you help me. Look around, Steve. It's not just me in this." His face turned pale. He might have been a scumbag, but he was smart enough to realize who he was dealing with. As soon as he realized I was Kelly's husband, he understood everything. "What are you going to do? I can just leave, and you can't prove anything." "Think again, stupid. You're parked in my driveway, and if you try to go back, I'll call the police. I have pictures of you with my wife from before. That's how I know you're here tonight. While you sit in jail, I'll also be adding you to my lawsuit against you and the others." Steve laughed weakly. "Don't be ridiculous. You've been watching too many detective shows. We don't have those laws here." I smiled in a way that probably looked scary. "I figured you wouldn't know about the law. Americans call it loss of consortium. It means you'll be stuck paying for this mess for the next 20 years unless you do what I say." I was bluffing. I didn't really know how much my threats were worth. Steve gave in. "What do I get if I help you?" "You get to walk free, and I suggest you start moving, quickly." Then I, along with Trent, the private investigator, and Colin, an off-duty police officer who knew my friend Leonard, waited just out of sight as Steve knocked on the door. Chad opened the door and welcomed Steve inside. "Welcome to the House of Trouble. Come in and take a number. We have someone special here tonight." I felt sick at how he talked about Kelly, my wife. Chad laughed loudly, and before he could close the door, I charged in with Trent right behind me, ready to take pictures. Colin had his badge out, ready to step in if things got heated. The sound of the camera snapping and the bright flash filled the room. It was a strange time to think about how funny it was to picture Trent diving into the room like a movie hero. Inside, Kelly was with several men as Trent took pictures. When she saw me, her eyes widened in shock. She tried to escape, rolling awkwardly over the back of the couch. Benjamin just stood there with a smug look on his face. I almost laughed at how silly they both seemed. Didn't they think I would find out? Kelly peeked up, her face full of shock. "Oh no, this can't be happening." That's when chaos broke out. Men and women scattered for cover. Kelly hid behind the couch, desperately trying to cover herself. Chad stood there, stunned. "Who are you? You can't just burst into my house." I looked at him, feeling amused. "You're right about the court, but it won't be me getting sued." I turned to Trent. "Get the evidence we need." "Yeah, mate. I've got plenty, and the quality is good." Chad's face showed fear and anger. "This is breaking and entering. You can't use any of this in court." He looked pathetic. and it made me smile. Steve had slipped away as soon as we came in, and nobody noticed. Too bad for you. We both know I have exactly what I need. I pulled out a small tape recorder from my pocket. You guessed it. It was the one I had wanted to buy for a while. This seemed like a good reason to spend the $50. Senior Sergeant Peters had warned me that I needed proof of invitation. Otherwise, it might look like I was breaking into someone's home. I didn't care, though. We'd figure out the legal stuff later. I hit rewind, then play. Welcome to the House of Trouble. Come in and take a number. We have one willing guest here tonight. I turned to Colin. That sounds like an invitation to me. Senior Sergeant Peters, what do you think? Colin showed his badge and laughed. It couldn't be more of an invitation if it was made of gold. I sneered at Chad, who looked scared. You're in big trouble. Start counting your money. While all of this was happening, the others were finding clothes and trying hard to hide. Kelly was crying and struggling to put on her blouse. I felt terrible seeing my wife of 6 years like this. I walked over to where I saw her purse and picked it up. I found her keys and phone and went through the other things inside. It had the usual stuff she kept. I found a few dollars in her purse, but I decided to leave it. There's $9 here, which is like $1, 50 for every year of our marriage. When I think about what's going on now, it's so sad. You're not even worth $2,300. Pathetic. Don't even think about coming home. Kelly stopped what she was doing. Please, don't say that. I don't want to hear anything from you. I picked up her credit card and threw it at her. It spun through the air and hit the couch in front of her. That card is worthless now because all of your accounts are frozen until our divorce is settled. I hope it was all worth it. Kelly fell to the floor, crying hard. Leonard and I were sitting in our favorite bar. You know, Kelly still calls and leaves me messages every hour. I've deleted every single one. I can't think of a single reason she could give that would change anything. But you know what surprises me? Leonard took a sip of his beer. No, mate. I know what surprises me, and I can only guess what you're thinking. You still love her, don't you? I nodded. Yeah, that's true, but I'm also worried about Steve. I must have scared him because he did exactly what I told him and ran away. He didn't drive off, though. His car is still in my yard, so I can't even get into my garage. Leonard looked at me blankly. Well, that might be partly my fault. I parked behind him when you guys went next door to break up the party. Steve came out of the house like he was being chased. He saw his car wasn't going anywhere and just took off running. I have no idea what he was thinking, just that he wanted to get away as fast as he could. Leonard chuckled to himself, and I asked in a sad tone, How long will this hurt last? Leonard's face became serious as he traced circles on the bar with the bottom of his beer bottle. Based on my experience, James, the truth is it doesn't go away right away. You'll feel this for a while, but you'll get past it with the help of good friends. Trust me, I'm proof of that. If it weren't for you and some other friends, I might not be here today. I nodded sadly, looking at Leonard's kind face. 6 years to build that marriage, and it only took her 6 months to break it, and now weeks to bury it. Leonard patted me on the shoulder. Look at it this way, James. It's often darkest before the dawn. I wasn't sure if it was the look on Leonard's face or what he said, but I looked at him for a moment and then started laughing. Where do you come up with this stuff, Leonard? That's the most overused thing I've ever heard. Leonard smiled, happy to see me laugh. I had to admit that when I felt down, my sense of humor often saved me. The lack of fresh air up where your head's been must be getting to your brain. I don't just have one ex-wife. I have 2, and I've heard all those lines more than once. Want to hear some? No way. But I've been meaning to ask you. Have you talked to Colin? Leonard shrugged. Yeah. He asked if I was with you last week. I told him we were fishing to get you away from all this mess. Why? He asked me the same thing. Did he say why? Leonard took another sip of his beer. Nope. Just nodded and said he'd see me later. Are you interested in knowing? I raised my bottle. Not really, the ex-wives club. May they all be gone. Just then, a woman's voice came from behind me. So it's true. You both have split up. I noticed Leonard mouth a silent, "Oh no." This could be uncomfortable. Do you want to know who it was? But I held up my hand to stop him. Hello, Marcy. How did you find me? Marcy laughed softly. Where else would you be? There's only one bar you go to. So who's to blame here? I still hadn't turned around and was staring at the bottles behind the bar. I knew I would have to talk to Kelly's parents at some point, but I was really hoping it would be later. Let me see if I understand this. Kelly is probably at your house, upset and saying bad things about me. And I still have the house and everything in it thanks to the prenuptial agreement. You're a clever woman, Marcy. You can figure it out. There was a moment of silence, and Leonard looked a bit uncomfortable. To help him relax, I signaled to Gary, the bartender. "Another beer for me and a glass of Chardonnay for the lady," I said, patting Leonard on the arm. "Stay here while I have a talk with Kelly's mom. Can you bring the drinks over when they are ready?" Leonard nodded and turned back to the bar. "Sure, buddy." I moved to a quiet table and pulled out a chair for Marcy. "A private spot, don't you think?" Marcy nodded sadly and sat down. "Did my daughter do something really bad?" I asked, taking a seat. I didn't want to go into details, but I nodded. "Yeah, it was pretty bad. I have pictures if you want to see." Marcy looked down at her lap and raised her hand. "No, I don't want to see how my daughter ruined her marriage. My mind is already running wild with thoughts." I could tell Marcy was hurt too. She was quiet for a moment, then spoke so softly I almost didn't hear her. "I'm sorry, James. Kelly was the last person I thought would do this, especially after what I went through." Leonard brought our drinks and quietly returned to the bar to give us some privacy. Just then, my phone rang. I looked and saw it was Marcy's home phone. I showed it to her. "Can you answer it, please, James? But put it on speaker and don't let on I'm here. It won't be Conroy. He's at work." I laid the phone on the table and hit the speaker button. "Hello, James. Is that you, sweetheart?" I heard Kelly's voice shake. "Yeah. Can I come home? We need to talk, darling. This is a huge mistake. No one needs to know what happened. They made me do those things. I love only you, sweetheart. I'm so sorry you got hurt. Please, we have to talk. You have to let me explain. You always said we can work out problems as long as we talk about them. Please, I'll be the best wife you could ever have. I won't make you worry again." Marcy took a pen from her bag and flipped over a coaster while Kelly was pleading with me. She wrote damage control and pointed to the phone. I nodded, asking, "Who? Don't you want to know what you did, Kelly?" There was a long silence, and Marcy decided to speak up. "Is that your mother, Kelly?" she said in a flat, serious tone. You could hear Kelly gasping as she realized her mother was on the line. "Oh, God help me, is that you, Mom?" "You better pray, my dear, because no one else will help you now. You've made sure of that." Kelly began to sob when she understood everything was falling apart. "Mom, I'm so sorry." "Shut up, Kelly," Marcy snapped, but her voice was calm. "It's clear to me now that my daughter isn't very smart. Don't try to think anymore, Kelly. That's how you got in trouble. All I want to hear from you is, 'Yes, Mom, is that clear?' Mom, listen to me for once. You're being rude." There was a long pause. "Yes, Mom." Now I understood where Kelly got her sharp tongue from. Marcy was talking to Kelly in a low voice, not losing control like most people do when they get mad. "Right now, you have two choices, Kelly," Marcy continued. "Even you should be able to choose between these. 1, hang up the phone and sit on the couch with your legs together and your hands in your lap looking down. You will wait for me to get home and then we will talk. Notice I said you and not with." "Do you hear me?" Another long pause. "Yes, Mom." Choice 2. If you can't deal with number 1, hang up the phone, get off your seat, and walk out my door. You'll only take with you what you have left from your ruined marriage. The silence was thick. "Yes, Mom." The spark in Kelly's voice was gone. Normally I'd feel bad hearing her like this, but now it felt serious. "I'll give you 30 minutes to decide," Marcy said. "Even you should be able to make the right choice in that time. But remember this, Kelly." A chill ran down my spine as Marcy continued. "If you choose to walk away, then you best keep walking. Don't ever come back to my house. You're on your own, and I can't see you lasting long before you find yourself in big trouble. Do you hear me, Kelly?" Even though I was angry with Kelly for what she did, I couldn't help but feel sorry for what was going to happen to her. "Yes, ma'am." "Good. You have 30 minutes, Kelly. I hope you make the right choice, but it's up to you. Now, I want you to say you are sorry to your horse, to James, for all the trouble you caused him, and then say goodbye." There was a long silence. "Kelly?" Marcy said sharply. Then I heard her gasp and she started crying. "I'm sorry, James. Please forgive me. I don't know what happened to me. I'm really, really sorry. I'll think about what you said and try to make a better choice. I promise. Kelly's voice was shaky when she finished. Say goodbye, Kelly. Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, James. And I'm really sorry. The call ended, and I found it hard to look at Marcy. I don't know what to tell you, Marcy. I loved Kelly with all my heart. She made me feel complete. When she let those bad people in, it felt like she was hurting me too. But it seems she doesn't feel the same way about me, I said as I looked back at her. Marcy lifted her head. Tears ran down her cheeks like rain, and she didn't try to stop them. No need to say anything, James, she said, sniffling and sobbing. I think I understand what you mean. It's similar and yet different for us women. Marcy lowered her head and started tearing a tissue into small pieces. I remember how it felt when my jerk left me for another woman. It broke my heart that he could just throw me away like that. I gave him all my love and support. It nearly destroyed me. I don't get it. Kelly was such a good girl, or so I thought. I just can't understand it. She brought her hands to her face, crying loudly. My heart ached for her. This pain was coming from her own child. I could only shake my head in disbelief. I don't understand either, Marcy. But the first 5 years were great. I fell more in love with her. Not that everything was perfect, but you know how it goes. There are always bumps as we get used to each other. I accepted that. I wasn't looking at Marcy as I tried to rip the label off my beer bottle in frustration. Then things started to change. Kelly changed. At first I didn't even notice. It turned into a fight for control. Who was in charge of the marriage? I thought it was supposed to be equal, like at the beginning. I glanced up to see if Marcy got it. Everything was fine until Chadwick and Pamela Stanton showed up. That was 7 months ago. Marcy's head snapped up at the mention of their names. She pulled another tissue from her purse and wiped her eyes. You can't be serious. Pam Stanton's maiden name wouldn't be Gleaming, would it? I nodded and she continued. Let me guess. That bobblehead favors. What about that awful guy, Dalton? And I suppose her friends Tracy and Sue Kenmore were there too? Yes, the last names have changed, but you nailed some of their first names perfectly. Except for favors. If I'm right, you're talking about Elizabeth McIntyre, right? I don't know any Daltons, but if the name's Caroline Dalton, then that's her. I haven't heard of any Tracy, but there's a Suzanne among them. You seem to know them better than I do. Marcy's face shifted from upset to angry in a blink. Damn right I know those people. I had to pull Kelly out of 10th grade and change her school just to keep her away from the Dalton group. Carol's a total mess, and Pam is bad news. If I'd known Kelly was hanging out with them again, I would have told you to keep her away. How long have they been back? As far as I know, Kelly met up with Carol about a year ago. I thought she told you how she felt about her friends. Marcy scoffed angrily. Not likely. Her harsh words surprised me. I'd never heard Marcy use strong language without blushing. Now I understood why she had locked herself in her room and didn't want to talk about everything. Wait until I get home. That silly girl will wish she was in a morgue when I'm through with her. I was still thinking as I said, I know I've talked a little about them, but I always used last names. Since their names are different from what you knew, we somehow missed the point. Now that I think about it, Kelly always seemed to change the subject when they came up around you. Marcy shrugged, and I went ahead to explain what I'd done to try to save our marriage. Her face hardened like stone. I raised my hands. Don't worry. I won't make her follow the agreement. She can keep what she brought into the marriage, according to our original prenuptial agreement. I won't fight that. What Marcy said next shocked me. Don't you dare, James. You take what's yours. If my foolish daughter signed something so clear and still treated you poorly, she deserves everything she gets. Marcy relaxed a bit. Don't worry about Kelly. I'm sure she'll be at home when I get there. One thing I know is she hates being alone. My threat to never come home will be enough to make her stay and face the music. I'll make sure she doesn't starve, but she will have to work hard to get back on her feet. I just sat there feeling grateful to have parents like mine. If Kelly thinks everything is done except for the arguing, she is very wrong. Marcy spoke for a little longer, not saying much. Honestly, there wasn't much more to say. As Marcy got ready to leave, she stood up and paused. James, can I share my thoughts on how men and women think differently? I nodded. I would appreciate any advice you can give me. Marcy smiled slightly. I've learned a bit over my life, James. Men and women view marriage differently. I know Conroy loves me deeply, and he shows it by what he does for me. When I see that sparkle in his eye, I know I mean everything to him. Sometimes this can be misunderstood, she continued. For casual partners, this might seem true. Women often rely more on emotions than physical connections. They show their love by sharing themselves fully, offering what's most important to them in love. That's why I don't understand what happened with Kelly. I feel just as confused as you do, I replied. She shouldn't have acted that way if she loved you like she says she does. I can only guess that Carol and her friends misled her, maybe trying to relive her youth without any rules. I agreed with Marcy without saying a word. Don't judge all women based on my daughter's mistakes, Marcy said. We don't know why she acted this way. And don't blame yourself for trusting the wrong person. You can look at all the signs, but sometimes a horse just stumbles unexpectedly. There's nothing anyone can do about that. Marriage is a bit like horse racing, she added. I stood up, giving her a warm hug and a kiss on the cheek as she patted my chest. You know, your father and I clash at times, but we both realize that our past marriages ended for reasons beyond our control. I'm glad you haven't been hurt as much as we were. As you know, Conroy is my third husband and Kelly's father. Your mother is your father's second wife. They are both good people. Conroy will be heartbroken by this, but you will find someone who loves you just as much. You just need to get back out there and try again. Do you hear me, James? I smiled, thinking about how it wasn't fair for someone like Marcy to have a daughter like Kelly. Yes, ma'am, I replied. Marcy smiled through her tears and gently patted my chest once more as she turned to leave. Take care, and don't be a stranger. I have a wayward child to handle, so I'll see you later. She said this playfully as she walked away. I was left thinking about all those mother-in-law jokes. I actually got along better with Marcy than her own daughter. How strange is that? I went back to Leonard to share what had just happened with Marcy. I remembered the first time I met Kelly at the Melbourne Cup. Kelly and Marcy entered a fashion contest together as a mother-daughter duo. They won easily, and I was drawn to Kelly right away. Marcy loves horse racing, but cooled on it after her first husband. She just enjoys the thrill of the race day. Oh, and I didn't mention that Marcy taught me everything I know about racing. She is one of the nicest people you could ever meet. Marcy gave me a kind smile and rubbed my arm as she walked past. I noticed Kelly approaching me after the decree Nisi was finalized. I thought about how it took us 6 years to build our marriage, 6 months for her to destroy it, and now 6 weeks for me to let it go. 6. 6. 6. Isn't that a fitting number for this situation? All I knew was it felt right in a bad way. I was officially single again, and it did not bring me happiness to see the marriage I tried to protect now over. It didn't have to end like this, James. I have always loved you, and I still do. She said this as if it could change anything. You never called me back. You never let me explain what happened. She looked nice, dressed very modestly. I guessed Marcy must be picking out her clothes now. Kelly was wearing something different from the last time I saw her. The previous outfit was not fit for this moment. I used the term wearing loosely since, aside from her boots, she had been completely naked when I caught her. What was there to explain, Kelly? You lied and betrayed me. You disrespected our marriage. I know about the Dalton gang. Your mom told me everything, so I had no more questions. Kelly winced when I mentioned the Daltons. I know we're done, James, but we need to talk so we can feel better and move on. It's interesting how stepping back can reveal things you've missed before. I noticed Kelly seemed to want to apologize. But was it real? Would it matter? Mom said you wouldn't want to hear any excuses, and I'm not making any, she said, holding her hand up. I shook my head. Your mom is right, Kelly. What can you say to ease my pain after what you did? I saw you with all of them. What could you say to that? The answer is nothing. I could feel my anger coming back again. All you want to do is feel better about yourself, Kelly. You just want to go over every little awful detail again. That will only make me sick. Why should I let you feel good while I feel terrible? Well, forget you and your horse, Kelly. Find another way to feel better. I don't want to hear anything from you anymore. I paused for a second and then thought, can we pause that for a minute? There is one question I want answered. Why? When I clearly said I did not want to be part of that lifestyle, did you keep pushing it? That's what I still don't understand. Why didn't you back off before things got this bad? Kelly was crying and fiddling with her mother's old purse. I don't know, James. I think it was about pride. You know I hate to lose. Your refusal upset me. It felt like a challenge, and I lost my calm. What Kelly said actually made some sense. Tell me, Kelly, did you ever enjoy our time together? Was it for love or just a way to have control over me? She looked confused, and I realized she had a strange idea of marriage. For Kelly, marriage was about winning or losing. In her eyes, there could never be a win-win. So for her to win, I had to lose. How messed up is that? Before Kelly could answer, I heard a voice. Hello, stranger. I knew who it was right away. What is it about me that makes women think it's okay to sneak up on me? I turned and said, Hi, Michelle, good to see you. What are you doing here? I noticed another woman beside her, Sarah. What a nice surprise. Hello, Sarah. Long time no see. You look as lovely as I remember. Sarah smiled. Too long, James. Way too long. You look good, too. I'm sorry for what happened, but I had to do my job. I hope you understand. I smiled back. No hard feelings. It wasn't your fault, Sarah. Did your date really stand you up, or was that just an excuse? Sarah blushed. Yes, my date stood me up. But you were kind and gentle when you turned me down, so I forgive you. I gave her a light kiss on the cheek, and we both smiled. I was happy to see them both again. Kelly looked shocked. What are these two doing here? Michelle giggled. Oh, my, James, what did you see in her? It was clear she wasn't really asking because she turned to Kelly. Don't you recognize us, dear? The agency described us, but they didn't show you our pictures. We are the women you pushed your husband towards, and we have a mission. With that, she twirled around. You paid good money for the best. I make you look like a mess, don't I? Bet that makes you feel sick inside. It must have been hard for Kelly, especially since she was wearing her old clothes. I thought to myself, this must be what name-calling is like for women. Do you get what I mean? Do you want to fight? I could feel tension rising. I didn't want to get in the middle of a fight. Have you ever tried to break up a fight? Don't do it unless you want to get hurt. Trust me, I learned my lesson once. I got in trouble when my girlfriend at the time fought with a woman who thought my girlfriend was with her man. Later, I found out the other woman was right, but I didn't know that then. I don't even remember who hurt me, but I ended up with scars that looked terrible. I told my friends I got them while being adventurous. They were impressed, but really I got hurt in a silly fight. Michelle tossed her long hair back. That was a dumb thing to do, Kelly. Get a clue. It's not roses you're smelling. Only a fool would act like you did. Kelly turned pale at Michelle's sharp words. I thought Kelly was good with words, but Michelle was even better. I started to relax and even chuckled. I was thinking the same thing. I didn't know what hurt more, Kelly's betrayal or that I fell in love with someone so foolish. What did your mother say, Kelly? Michelle and Sarah looked curious, so I told them, which made Kelly unhappy. I said, My daughter hasn't got the brains of a grasshopper. The two women burst out laughing at Kelly, but I have to think about what this means for my preferences. Michelle touched my arm while she tried to stop laughing. Kelly did not like that at all. It means you cared for her and trusted her completely, which is how it should be. And for me, that really matters. I smiled. So how did you know I'd be here? Michelle chuckled again. Have you forgotten? I worked for a place that gathers information about people. I've been watching you since our dinner. I almost met you at that bar you like. But an older woman got there first. You might want to ask about her. Who was she? I raised my eyebrow, remembering my meeting with Marcy. Kelly can tell you. After all, Marcy and I were talking hands-free on the phone at that time, right, Kelly? Or should I say that her mother was talking and all you said was, Yes, Mom, if I recall correctly. Kelly looked down, shaking as she cried. So I turned back to Michelle. So you've been watching me then? I know that sounds bad, but I actually felt good about it. Michelle's shy smile was cute. Yes or no? I heard there was a new eligible man out there, so I thought I'd try to get in early with my offer. Good men are very rare these days. I felt a little regret when I saw you with Marcy. Is this true? I nodded, but she didn't stay long and the kiss on the cheek was just friendly. Then you went back to your friend, and I thought it wasn't the right moment to interrupt for my own reasons. So I left. She wrapped her right arm around Sarah's waist. That's when I asked Sarah to help me show you what I can offer. That is, if you think it might be in your best interest to spend time with me. There go those eyebrows again. For a moment, I was speechless. What did she just say? Michelle noticed my surprise and pressed on. Sarah nearly hugged me to death for making this suggestion. She smiled and gently rubbed her finger on Sarah's cheek. Then she brought her hand to her mouth, but didn't try to whisper. I heard you have this little dream that Sarah and I could help you with. Michelle gave me a mischievous smile, raising her eyebrow invitingly, then trailed her fingers down the side of her face. That was it. My brain went blank. I really needed to adjust myself, but I couldn't without being obvious, so I just dealt with the discomfort. What do you think, James? You came to try. There go those eyebrows again. There's nothing we wouldn't do for the right man, and I know both Sarah and I are interested. Why am I thinking about that silly dog? Kelly stood there, stunned by the two women. She knew she was pretty. I thought so, too. But we all knew she couldn't compare to either of these two. This blonde newcomer was stepping into her space and trying to catch me. It was clearly upsetting Kelly. Then I suddenly realized something. Of course, it all made sense now. While I signed the marriage papers, she was signing for a credit card. The way she got her marriage was like using credit. Just like everyone knows, you don't need to pay back that credit card right away. You can make small payments. What did I say about women and credit cards? I should have seen it. What a fool I was. I had missed it before. Kelly had bought herself a husband and used her charm as payment. This was more messed up than I'd thought. I now understood her, but it might be too late. But if I looked at it this way, then Kelly could see why things went wrong. The credit card companies don't care if you just make small payments. They actually encourage it. That's not good for a marriage. But hey, she's a woman, so I have to cut her some slack. Not much, just a bit. I could finally see where I went wrong in my marriage. I had unknowingly supported an idea she learned from her parents. Kelly never had to work for anything in her life. To me, not making her work when we got married only made that idea stronger. If I had made her work for her money to pay off her credit card, she might have been more careful with how she used it. That was my mistake. But I can tell you right now, that's the only thing I'll take credit for. Bullshit, she yelled angrily. We all turned our heads at Kelly's outburst. That is all total nonsense. Damn you, Jim. You set this up. You're paying them to say these things. No woman would do that. This is just to get back at me for cheating on you. Oh, that's rich, Kelly. Sarah jumped in. This is coming from someone who threw her husband at not one, but two women, and then complains when she gets caught up in her own lies. We know who isn't in their right mind here, Kelly. A what? Kelly snapped. I can't believe it. Even Michelle and I were surprised. Sarah smiled down at Kelly. Look it up. It means you're a fool, an idiot with the thinking skills of a 2-year-old. I see those dark roots, Kelly. You aren't even a true blonde. That only makes you look even sillier. Oh my God, here we go. That has really set things off. I noticed how Kelly was looking at Sarah, but I quickly turned to Michelle, who seemed lost in her thoughts. I don't really know these other women well enough to say if they are true friends or just casual acquaintances, but this does not look good. If Michelle feels hurt, this could lead to a big fight. I felt like I needed to find a place to hide. By the way, Sarah has red hair, Michelle is blonde, and Kelly is a fake blonde. Now you understand why I'm looking for a place to escape. Michelle blinked a few times and slowly turned to Sarah. Thanks for that clever comment, dear. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I love you too. Sarah smiled back. You're welcome, my dear. I feel the same. Maybe I should have added a little more, saying that Michelle didn't count. Michelle frowned. This didn't seem to make things any better. I was so relieved that I started to laugh, tears rolling down my face. I held my hands up jokingly. Honestly, Kelly, I had no idea about any of this. It never crossed my mind at all, but this talk made their offer sound even better. I'm definitely curious about the details of Michelle's plan. Michelle had just given Sarah a sweet kiss on the cheek, saying something like, "We'll talk about your comment later," before turning to Kelly. James is right, sweetie. He had no idea about our plans. You could almost see the steam coming out of Kelly's ears. I had no clue what was going through her mind, but she looked frustrated as she tried to catch up. So, now you're a hypocrite? I tried to have a fun time with you, and you kicked me out and divorced me for it. What a fool I was to marry someone like you. What she said next made me think she was finally ready to get serious. And what was that about my friends? I looked at her, not understanding. What are you talking about, Kelly? Is your brain still at the beauty salon? Kelly frowned. You know, 2 of our friends are in the hospital. Chad has 2 broken knees. Norm's elbow is smashed. Carol just called, and Pam said Ben left with everything he could take without saying why. Susan told me Mel left 2 days after Ben, leaving her with just the kitchen sink. Are you telling me you don't know? Suddenly, I remembered why Colin, who is Leonard's police friend, asked me where I had been 2 times. I told him where I was, and he seemed satisfied but didn't explain anything to me. To be fair, I wasn't really paying attention back then, so I didn't ask more. I hadn't even kept track of those people. They were never our friends, Kelly. They were yours. With friends like that, who needs enemies? I had nothing to do with any of this. The police have already talked to me, and they believe me. If those fools were messing with you, they were probably messing with other people, too. I don't care what happens to them. Good riddance. I frowned. And as for me being a hypocrite, that's just not true. I'm single now, Kelly. What I do is my business. I told you I wasn't perfect when I was single, but I have my principles. Even though you hurt me for 6 months, I've kept my self-respect. I felt like I could scream. Oh, and before I forget, if you see Steve and he asks about his car, tell him to go to the police impound lot. They took it from my driveway so I could park my car in the garage. If he wants it back, it'll cost him $5,000. Otherwise, it's going to the junkyard, and all he'll have left is a crumpled toy. As an afterthought, I joked, that's pretty expensive if you ask me. He must be really angry. Maybe he's been taking out his frustration on your friends. I was mad that she tried to call me a hypocrite. I might have mentioned that before, but let's not get sidetracked. Back to Michelle and Sarah. If they want to invite me into a relationship, that's fine. No one promised there would be any exclusivity. As for that fantasy you think you gave me, that's just nonsense. At this point, I could feel everyone taking a step back from my angry rant. I heard that call you made to that awful woman, Caroline. I felt sick listening to that. You were planning to make things worse by feeding me your lies. Now, Kelly's face froze. She realized I knew a lot more than she thought. My face was burning with anger. You clearly said you were with those guys at least 2 months before you even knew about my fantasy. You did nothing but lie and cheat and tried to stop me from getting a divorce. If I ever found out about your lies, it just shows how foolish you really are. And honestly, I wouldn't mind getting back at both of those guys. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You have to be confident if you're going to take on those idiots. I bet you came up with this whole plan as soon as your friends showed up. I know for sure it was you asking if I had any dreams. Now I have to ask myself why you asked. I'll tell you. You wanted to be free to hang out with those fake friends without worrying about your money. By the end of my speech, Kelly was crying. Michelle jumped in with, "Oh boy, there's a man here who wants to talk to you." I looked at Michelle, confused. Did I mention that women are great at juggling many things at once? Michelle was probably thinking about her next hair appointment, the color she needed for the curtains, calling her boss, solving some mystery, and getting milk for her mom all at the same time. Then Michelle introduced the guy. Meanwhile, I was losing my train of thought. Women really can be a mystery. Michelle nodded toward a man standing close by. He stepped into our group. "Kelly? Garrett?" he asked. Kelly nodded and sniffed. "That's my last name. What do you want?" "Not much, ma'am. Just letting you know you've been served." He handed her an envelope. "I advise you to get a lawyer about the case from Ace Investigations. It's about an unpaid bill that's now more than 2 months overdue." Kelly looked shocked as she took the envelope. "Have a nice day, ma'am," he said, walking away while whistling. I could start to like that guy, but Kelly began to cry again. This can't be happening. She ripped open the letter and gasped. "I can't pay this. It says I owe $1,500. That's not right. I paid $1,000 already as a deposit. What happened to that money?" Michelle smiled and pulled out a check, waving it in front of Kelly before passing it to me. I noticed it was one of our checks to Ace Investigations for $1,000 with Kelly's signature on it. "You're right, Kelly," Michelle said, "but I managed to convince Brock not to cash that check. He decided to charge the total to your account instead. He thinks the check would have bounced since James probably locked the account. He also said that it was terrible what you did, trying to use James's money to get an easy way out." Kelly was about to shout again, but Sarah stepped in. Michelle's right. Brock is a good guy if you don't upset him, but if you do, it won't end well for you. Probably not a good idea to ask for another job from him. We all stayed quiet as Kelly's face changed from sick to scared. Then Sarah spoke again. That's really low, using your husband's money against him. Kelly turned to me and cried, You and that stupid prenuptial have made me broke. I don't have 2 cents to my name. I have no clothes, no place to go, no car, and now no life. I don't even have skills for a job. What will I do now? Her makeup had run down her face from crying. I took a moment to think. Don't give me that excuse, Kelly. Life isn't fair and you know it. Remember when you talked with your mom? You won't starve. But I can tell you this much. What your mom will say to you isn't going to feel good. I doubt you'll sit comfortably after your mom is done with you. I thought about what Marcy had said and decided to share some harsh advice. If you don't like that option, there's one thing you've been working on all year that could help you. There's an opening on 5th and Main. Just be sure to get checkups and stay safe. You might have a few good years left, but remember, you won't be living at your mom's or mine. Kelly screamed and kicked the ground. This isn't fair, James. I'm losing my mind. You don't know how it feels. I would never have used the prenup if things were switched. You can't leave me with nothing. I could see Kelly didn't care about fixing things between us. It was clear she was just looking for money to escape the trouble her mother would cause her. I let out a sigh. You forget, Kelly. I was married to you for 6 years. You're just like your mom. I know what it's like to have someone pulling your strings all the time, so no more excuses. My frustration grew. Leonard helped me create the prenup, and he understood you better than I did. He made sure to add that 10-year support rule, knowing you'd try to take advantage of it. Do you remember what you said on the phone to that woman, Caroline? If not, you said he'd be paying for the next 10 years for you to do whatever you want. There's no kindness left here, Kelly, so don't expect any from me. With that, Kelly dropped to the floor, defeated. I took a deep breath to calm down. Thanks, Kelly. I'm glad we talked. I'm feeling so much better now. Yes, 2-0, it's over. I win. All right, maybe I'm being a bit smug. But I stretched out my arms to Michelle and Sarah. Ready to go, ladies? We have some talking to do. We'd be happy to, James, they both replied with big smiles. As we walked away, Michelle said, Oh, by the way, Brock says there's no extra charge. I looked at her confused. She put her finger to her lips and nodded toward Kelly. It's not as bad as she said. One will be limping forever and the other's tennis career is done. But they will be okay. The other two will be looking over their shoulders for a long time. I shook my head. Just one more question. Why didn't I know about this? Michelle grinned. You ever see that movie Independence Day with Will Smith? I nodded. Well, you understand the idea of plausible deniability. Brock knew you were off fishing with your boss. I've never seen him so angry. So he took the chance to have a talk about cause and effect with Kelly's group. He knew that when the police came knocking, you would react just like you did, without looking guilty, and it worked perfectly. I suddenly got what she was saying. I took out the check from my pocket and held onto Michelle's handbag for support. I crossed out Kelly's signature and signed underneath, then wrote on the back. Tell Brock thanks, but I pay my own way. Give him a hug and kiss for me, and tell him I owe him more than this little check. Michelle took the check, grinning from ear to ear. I'll do that, just for you, James. But that's all. Brock's just not my type. Now, as we walked away, was I really happy? Absolutely. Thank you both for standing up to Kelly back there. But I still felt like she had won in a way, with the cooking and all, even though I was better off in the divorce. My self-esteem was really low. I felt like a naive fool, just taking what she gave me, and she still seemed to have power over me with her lies and disrespect. I managed a sad smile as Sarah hugged me. When it comes to hurt feelings, women understand each other best. The saying is true, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. I grinned. That's not quite how it goes, Heaven has no rage like love turned to hate, or something like that. Michelle looked at me with a playful sigh. Okay, maybe we weren't scorned, but we sure were mad about being treated like that. Michelle and I both knew I would feel the sting of Kelly's betrayal and needed to see her get taken down a notch. I started to laugh. A peg or two? You two pulled the whole ladder out from under her. But I'm glad you did. My manly pride thinks I should be the one getting revenge, not you two. But all I want is to move on and put this behind me. With what Kelly's mom has planned for her, and what you two just did, I almost feel like a damsel in distress, and you three are my knights in shining armor. My cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I wasn't sure how I felt about that, but I thought a lot of tender care would help my hurt feelings. I had never seen her so upset in my life. The part about letting me live my fantasy didn't just break her spirit, it completely crushed her. I appreciated it, even if it was more for her than for me. By the way, who is your type? Michelle gave me a cheeky smile. Who said it was only for her? I looked confused. Okay, my brain is racing with ideas and I'm speechless while both women are giggling. Home, James, and don't hold back. Michelle and I turned to Sarah, puzzled. She looked back and said, It's just something I always wanted to say. We all burst out laughing. Michelle licked her lips and sighed. She has the best legs I've ever seen. Michelle turned to me with wide eyes and jumped up. Does this mean we're friends now? I was lost. What do you mean? Did I tell you that women really understand each other? Never mind. Yes, I believe that we trash-talked each other for the last hour could count as some sort of friendship. I said with a wink, Of course we're friends. What made you think otherwise? Nikki sat down beside me, resting her chin on her hands and looking me right in the eye. She shot me a sultry look that was hard to ignore. You like that description? I could go on for hours, but never mind. I have better things to do than talk to you. You should get your own life, she teased. Now I really felt nervous. You know, for all Kelly's faults, I have to admit she has some great taste in clothes. Mind if I try some on? I burst out laughing at the thought that Kelly spent almost $15,000 on clothes just a few months ago, and she never even wore them. Not even once. Sarah, you and Michelle should have fun with that. So, lay back and enjoy it. I'm smiling like a Cheshire cat. I believe I'm in for a good time. Or maybe I'm already dead and in heaven. I might need to rethink my ideas about that instinctual, optimistic approach. From where I'm lying, it seems pretty silly now. I just hope they're not going to rush into anything that would overwhelm me. Now I get why Dad remarried. It doesn't sit well with me. But hey, Dad and I are getting along great. He's learned a lot in the past 6 months and now knows almost as much as I do. Marcy visits her parents often. Even though I don't ask, she keeps me updated on Kelly's situation. I think she does this to help me feel better, not because she thinks we'll get back together. The other day, I heard her talking to my dad when she stopped by. I had Mickey and Sarah with me, and I felt a bit awkward introducing them. But Marcy was friendly and shook hands with both of them. I was also a little nervous since Marcy and Dad don't always get along. I heard her say sorry for what her daughter did. Dad replied, No need to say sorry, Marcy. It wasn't your fault. Besides, I think James is doing all right now. Marcy agreed, saying, Actually, I think he's doing more than just all right. Your son has done really well. Dad looked puzzled, and Marcy added, He turned something bad into something good. I couldn't help but smile at their laughter. I had to keep my own pride in check so I wouldn't seem smarter than I am. I wondered why Dad got married again and asked him. Dad said, Leonard and I talk about this a lot. Being married to strong women has its ups and downs. They can be hard to live with, but it's hard to stay away from them, too. He had a funny way of putting it, explaining that life can be tough either way. He advised me to just go with the flow and enjoy life, like a dog that is happy just to be alive. I learned that true friends are the ones you can count on during tough times. For me, those friends are Mickey, Sarah, and now Brock, who helped me move on from a stressful time in my life. I appreciate Leonard, Marcy, and my dad for guiding me through the trouble of marriage and being there when I needed them. I wonder if Kelly can say the same about her friends. Oh, well, that's life. I remember a quote. The future moves on. No amount of wishing can change the past. It reminds me of how things happen that we can't control. I think both of Lenny's ex-wives had issues and lost a lot because of it. They sold their share in a company for less money to deal with problems from their past. With the money James got from lawsuits, he and Lenny now own a big part of that company, which is doing well. Michelle and Sarah work together there in a good job. Lenny jokes that he is done with tall women, but he can't resist their charm. He has a new girlfriend and seems happy again. After some hard times, he's feeling better. His new partner is happy too, and it seems good for them both. Chad had to stop running because of his knees and instead spends too much time sitting around. Pam isn't happy about that, and it seems their relationship has lost its spark. Norm had to quit tennis due to an injury, and he's been dealing with hearing problems after being in the hospital. Meanwhile, the women in their group don't notice that nobody talks to them anymore. They chat amongst themselves and seem oblivious to it. The tax office is looking into Norm's finances because something looks off with the way he's reported his dependents. Ben and Mal have disappeared from the scene. The women don't associate with Kelly anymore and prefer to keep to themselves. I hope that Kelly faces some tough times, works a low-paying job to settle her debts, and gains some perspective on her life. Maybe after some hard lessons, she'll find peace living on her own, figuring things out. I hope over time she can find a husband who will appreciate her. As for James, he plans to marry Michelle after a year of dating, with a prenup that makes it clear she wants no other men in their marriage. And so, my quest for revenge led me down a path I never imagined, filled with darkness and despair. Her tears and pleas for forgiveness still echo in my mind, but they couldn't erase the betrayal. I made them both pay, yet the satisfaction was fleeting. Now, as I stand amidst the ruins of our lives, I wonder, was it worth it? Hey listeners, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.